Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today with episode 237 of the H.A.M Radio Podcast.
And it's me, Karak with ACG.
You all right?
I swallowed a sharp part of the Jolly Rancher right when you were talking. Me, Karak with ACG. Let's do this.
All right. Yeah. There we go. Smooth that time, like butter. Yeah, that reminds me when you said the sharp part, there was this one time, I think it was like 2-3 years ago, I swallowed a toothpick by accident. I made a whole video about it, and
How'd you live through that shit? What'd you do?
I don't know. I remember I bit into a sandwich, and I was looking at my phone, right? And I swallowed it, and all I felt was like a harsh scrape in my throat. And I'm like, I look down, I see one toothpick. I don't see the other, and I'm like, oh boy. Because I'm like, that's sharp, and that could get stuck in a number of places, whether it be my intestines or my throat. So I call my mom. She's like, yeah, maybe just go to, the urgent care. Let them know what happened. So I go there. He tells me, go to the emergency room. I'm just like, okay, now this is actually serious. We go there. They take, like, scans of my throat. They see, like, maybe, like, a little horizontal thing.
Maybe.
Yeah. And they're
gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, like, they're saying, like, oh, it might be stuck, if that's what it is. And then they verified from, like, a different angle. And they're like, no, there's nothing there. You're fine. But terrifying to know that I had swallowed it and not knowing how things would have ended up. Because what they were saying,
how things would come out of you in a day or so.
Yeah, that too could have been a little bloody. But like the fear for them was it got stuck in my throat, and then I'd swallow, let's say, a
something
steak,
else,
and it would just sit on there, or it would like pull down on it and like rip my throat. Like those two, I was like terrified about for days. I was like, oh my god, like, I'm gonna eat soft food strictly.
I wonder if because they always show that like pop sodas really soften up like a toothpick really quick because they're so acidic.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if the only way to get around that would just be chug a bunch of pop continually and hope that you soften it up.
Son of a bitch.
So you can take that.
I wouldn't have even had to go to the ER.
Yeah, because that's probably what I would have done is just chugged. Because, dude, they'll show videos of like wood in a soda, and it only takes just a couple minutes before that it's really pliable. That'd probably be the only thing I would think of.
Wow, interesting.
And the idea of swallowing a toothpick frightens me for some reason. I don't even have them around me, and I've thought about that before.
Dude, you'd be surprised how thoroughly I check these sandwiches now.
Yeah, right. I told you I swallowed the dry absorbent packet one time, the sickest I've ever been in my life.
What?
I had pepperoni put on a pizza.
Okay.
You buy the slices of DiGiorno is what it's called here.
Okay.
And you put them on a pizza and you cook a pizza. They have a dry absorbent packet, and that is there to keep moisture out. And then you put it's those drives, and I swallowed the drives. So I was just chewing this, playing a video game, and it must have got between two pieces of pepperoni, and like the hog master I am, I gutted that thing, swallowed it, and I have never been that sick. It was like shitting an angry cat for 3 days. I'm not lying. Because I used to never call off from HP. Like people were like, Jeremy's never calls off. And I called off for 3 days in a row. I was crawling, I was puking, I was everything. I would crawl to the bathroom, take care of things, crawl back, and I would sit there, and the only comfort I got was rubbing my legs together because I think it was sensory. It was like that's because it hurt so bad, and I didn't even go to I didn't know at the time. I knew 3 days later when I passed.
If you're crawling to the bathroom, you should probably be in a hospital.
I thought I had food poisoning, so I was just like, oh, it was the pepperoni. It was bad, and I thought it was food poisoning, and then 3 days later, I heard a poop. And I went and looked, and I was like, oh, shit, that was a dry absorbent. No wonder. So that stuff, if you've ever seen that shit, you can, like, drop it in water, a small amount of water, and it'll be all, and it'll just disappear. And that's what it was doing on my insides. Let's just do a podcast about swallowing random shit.
Yeah, honestly, I think we both gone through enough of that. All right, so for those who are new here, welcome to a weekly gaming show. We like to just cover the hottest news topics that happen each and every single week. If you guys want to go ahead and support the show, we do early access over on my Patreon for just $1. You can get early access to the show 2 days ahead of time. If you want to get involved even more, we do Patron Questions at the end of the show, sometimes intertwining them with our respective topics for the show. Most times, though, we just like to reserve it for the end, and it's usually our longest part of the podcast because it's our time to unwind and just directly interact with our viewers. And maybe as we get more questions coming in, we'll split them in half, like do some in the beginning, some in the end to sort of not overkill it at any part of the show. But if you want to get involved in that, at the $3 level, you can join my Patreon and be a part of the Discord where you can submit those questions and interact with a great community. Karak also has one, and is there anything going on over on your Patreon, good sir?
No, we did UFC last week. We did where everybody sat
That
inside
fight?
and watched UFC. That fight was fast, but the rest of the fights, we just have a good time. I mean, everybody's eating, and some people are drinking.
Do you like the Holly Holm fight?
You know, I like her overall. I love her attitude. But I've felt like she's on her way. Like something has not happened for her. It just, you know how it is. Like, do you know the guy who always wears the American flag? He beat Anderson Silva.
Name's not coming to me, but
that guy, everybody was like, he's the up and comer, right? He won once. He got, and then once he lost it, he's just continually been beset by bad training and injury. And I feel the same way with Holly Holmes. I like her a lot, and I was happy she knocked out Rousey. One of the best experiences I've ever had watching UFC. I celebrate only a couple people's demise, and Ronda is definitely one of them. I hate bad attitudes. Well, like Conor, his attitude was great. His attitude, he hugged the old lady.
He seemed like a different man in that ring. Yeah, that was ridiculous.
Think about this, Matty. $200 million is what he's worth, and he returned to fight in good shape, which is so rare for champions. I was talking about this in your Discord, that I was like, I'm wondering if somebody worked on different goals now, not becoming a champion, but like becoming it and holding on for a certain amount because a lot of champions, that's all they look at, and the moment they get it, shit goes downhill.
Yeah, because it's like, what's the purpose?
What's the purpose? Yeah, it was. I don't like him normally, but that particular fight, hats off to him. He's a very good sportsman, which I love.
Yeah, that's what I like to see too. Hugged his opponent immediately. That's what caught me off guard. I'm like, wait, what?
I do feel so. You watched it with your friends.
I watched it by myself.
Oh, you watched? Well, dude, you could have just come in the fucking.
I didn't think to. I don't know. My brain doesn't work that way. I usually think like, oh, we got to go out for this or go to.
Oh, gotcha.
It was the original plan was to go to Buffalo Wild Wings and get some wings and watch it,
but
or whatever. The weather was bad and we were just like, you know what, let's just stay in. So I was just like watching it by myself.
I'm not dissing on him, but I don't think it was probably the best when they. So they didn't really touch gloves at the starting, but there was no animosity. They stepped back. When they got together, I've watched that a couple dozen times, and it does look like for a brief moment Cowboy thinks they're going to touch gloves. And Conor throws that big haymaker. Now that's smart because Cowboy starts out slow. It's very smart. But I did feel that was, I'm not going to say bad sportsmanship at all. In fact, Cowboy, you could say, was dumb. You should, when you're at the back of the ring and they're calling you and say fight, you should go like this, which indicates, do you want to touch gloves first? He didn't, so that's on Cowboy. But I did feel that if you look, like Conor looks like he's sort of like going to touch gloves, and there's like, shh, and wouldn't have changed the fight. That was the only thing, and that's nitpicking. It was. I like knockouts, by the way. I don't know about you. I heard a lot of people complaining, like, I want my money back. And I'm like, that's not how it works, dude. You watch a movie, shitty ending, guess what? You paid the money. For me, champions knock people out, or they win handedly, and I feel absolutely like that's okay with
the nature of the sport. You know, the fight can end quick.
Dude, it's your brain. If you've ever been concussed, it's the craziest thing in the world. And Cowboy wasn't, but he was beat to fuck, and he slaughtered his nose. That nose is still orbiting like low Earth right now. Dude, did you see his nose?
Yeah.
It was fucking like over here. Anyway, it was fun to watch.
Good. All right, so what we like to do in our introductory section here is talk about what games we're playing. Karak, you've posted a preview for Stranger's Wrath. I saw you did a review for Walking Dead Saints and Sinners for the VR. Whichever one, outside of that, maybe you're playing something else too, would you like to get into?
Yeah, Journey to the Savage Planet.
Oh, yes, you said you were reviewing that last week.
Reviewing that, and then Saints and Sinners is probably one of the number one VR titles I've played. Is the level of fun in that game and the level of interactivity, and like grabbing a zombie and throwing him into Joe Bob so that they both fall off some stairs so you can stab the third one it's awesome.
Yeah, I was watching your review and I was fascinated how much like the show it was where you like put the knife in their head and you can use your hand to like grab their head and pull it out. I was like, wow, okay.
It's crazy. And you can chop people's heads off and arms off and stuff, but the main attack, is this knife. And what's cool is you can barely stab it, you can kill them, but when you do, you have to jerk the VR wand away to get the knife out. So what I was doing to feel like a badass is I wasn't, and I was just dragging zombies
I saw that in your...
Yeah, dude. And grabbing people, and like you'd kill somebody, you just grab their head, you're talking to another NPC, and you've got this zombie or a person. Yeah. And it works really well, and it's just like State of Decay in that it adds more than I expected. So State of Decay added your skills and your characters mattering. In this one, there's RPG elements I was not expecting that push it just a bit above most. And I think that the only problem is you have a Rift.
Rift
right?
S.
And I have the WMR, the Vive, and a Rift. One of the problems is, and I have a Samsung, it's a dark game. So if you have an LCD screen in your VR versus OLED, OLED allows for them to shut off the shutter. So black looks black. Darkness looks truly, genuinely black. Well, with our headsets, they're LCD, so they're consistently gray. So at nighttime, not great looking. At nighttime, the world looked gray. That's the only way. It's like this fine layer of gray. And with the Odyssey, it's got an OLED, so it was perfect on that one. That was one thing I noticed, which sort of sucked because it's you notice it on Elite, which I know you haven't played. Well, Skyrim. So Skyrim during nighttime, if you concentrate, you can tell it's not nighttime. It's super dark gray nighttime on those.
Yeah, it's a lot. That's a big complaint for BGS games alone. A lot, and now gaming is starting to talk about it. Like, just nighttime doesn't feel like night. I mean, I think maybe one game that got it right was Dying Light. I think there was
Dragon's Dogma.
That one too. Yeah, that one's probably the best example. Because I remember Dying Light because they changed how the world, how dangerous it was at nighttime, and I do remember it being pretty dark out. It's been a number of years, like 5, I think. So
yeah, it's been a while.
It's been a while, but from what I recall, that was one game that did darkness well. But so it's interesting you mentioned that because I don't remember if you said this in your review. Does the world change at all when it does turn to night in that game, or?
Yeah, so the bells ring, and basically the evil group is calling zombies to kill everybody in town. So there's different factions, and you can actually help or hinder the factions. And so if you stay out, these bells ring, and then zombies just come from everywhere, and you have to sort of hoof it back. You can't actually travel into town at night. So if you're in town, it's fine. The bells ring, and you better run somewhere. If you're at home, which has to be the best homeless home I've ever seen in my life. That guy's homeless home is better than my house. He's got a bus. He's got like a huge place of safety and places to build. To go back is just this little skiff, this little like floatable, submersible, because it's New Orleans after it's flooded.
Right.
And so that changes. The factions can be up or down depending. So if you help them, they'll help you. You can help people on the street. That all changes. And then when you go back, it rearranges where some items are. So sometimes you come around a corner and where there was a brick or something prior, there might be a piece of a gun, and you can grab that because it's all about collecting and getting the scrap. And then playing so Stranger's Wrath. Did you ask for a code? Because I got the code late.
I was going to, but I chose not to because ultimately I was like, I've played this game so many times. I feel like I'd just be almost asking for my own personal desires, not because I wanted to make content on it. But I really want to play it.
That's exactly how I felt, so I didn't review it. I just did the unrated, which is like a what the fuck video kind of thing from Total Biscuit.
Yeah,
and
I like when you do those. Yeah, those are good.
It's a surprising port because I've never seen a port on a Switch add anti-aliasing options.
Yeah, I saw that in your video. I was like, what?
Yeah, dude,
that's weird.
Yeah, and pretty sure it was dumping FPS pretty badly. Oh, and I will say, handheld, and this is something we notice, runs pretty smooth, butter almost. But man, you dock that thing, dude. Even with the FPS or with the anti-aliasing off, I was having issues. But it's Stranger's Wrath, which didn't necessarily age great either. It's almost like KotOR. When you and I like KotOR, but when I return to it, I'm like, damn, son, like this is pretty rangy. Like there's some shit here, and that's Stranger's Wrath, dude. The fucking camera.
Okay.
The camera.
Yeah, I was going to say, what didn't age well? Because I have these fond memories. I played the HD remaster on the PS3, and this was a while ago. I couldn't even give you a year, but it was a really long time ago. So, so it's the camera? Anything with the gameplay?
And the camera doesn't... So, I don't know if you remember, but the camera sensitivity is much faster right and left than up and down, but you do need to look up and down at times. And so when you are in third person trying to look down, no lights, it's slow. And you're just like, please hurry. What the
Yeah.
fuck? Also, I firmly believe, and I'll go to my grave believing this. I really do believe that game didn't need third person at all. First person's the way it should be played. It plays spectacularly well in first person, and you get to see the creatures, the fucking ship punks, and that dude talking all the time. Give me somebody to kill. Or whatever,
on your gun, the one who sits
on your
there
gun,
and
yeah. They're and like the charge flies. You know, if you don't fire quick enough or don't fire, they start to charge up on their. So good.
If it was just a first-person shooter, I think you could make a solid argument that it'd be like I don't want to say one of the most revolutionary ones, but one of the most truly unique first-person shooters. But because it's like a hybrid, it kind of like loses that identity. But man, like, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't played Stranger's Wrath, it's probably the most accessible Oddworld game nowadays.
I agree, yeah.
And because it's a shooter, and it has like this, for those of you who've played the older Star Wars games, Star Wars Bounty Hunter has an element of that, but the ammo that you use is just incredible. For Oddworld fans, you'll know what fuzzles are. They're these small, cute brown balls of fur. But they have razor sharp teeth, and they will go crazy to defend like their quote masters. And Munch originally like controlled them in Munch's Odyssey, but in this game they're used as a type of ammo, so you could shoot them onto enemies like at a bunch at a time, and they'll start like tearing them up. Like Karak said, you can use charge flies, which is like your pacifist playthrough type of ammunition. You charge it, and you can kind of stun them. And when you stun them, you can capture them and get a ton of moolah, like money. Which you can spend on various upgrades for your character. I think for the amount of ammo you can carry.
It's ammo, and it's also more ammo because you hunt your own ammo, which is awesome.
Yes, so I forgot about that.
Yeah, so all the ammo is in nests. So like you'll see cobwebs. That means the spider-ons. I can't remember what their names are, but they're the spider characters, and you have to shoot them with the the zap flies, which is your unlimited ammo. And what I liked about it is not only the hunting aspect, but, dude, it's one of the few games where you can use almost every single bullet and item on the boss without the boss not reacting to it. How many times have you got, like, a stun gun on a boss and you shoot it, and the boss is like, it's too small? Here, it just works very quickly. So, like, I would wrap up the main boss for maybe a half of a second at most, while the normal enemies would be 3 seconds, let's say. And I ended up killing the boss by not even paying attention. I shot the fuzzles at the ground because you can trap people by putting them at the ground. Yes. The boss came around. I hadn't done any damage. He came around, and I electrified him. Those fuzzles jumped on him, and he fell into the fan and exploded.
Oh,
and I was just like, so I killed him, and I couldn't even put it in the video because it was just like, there was no time. I didn't even catch it because I shot, electrified him, turned to run, and I hear, rah, and then it went to the cutscene. And I was like, wait, what? And then I realized what had happened. He had fallen in there.
Okay.
And just all the different ammos and the way you can use them against all these different, all the different creatures. You can drown them by scaring them into the water because no one can swim but you.
Yeah.
So, yeah, there's a really good game, but its quality of life for now is rough as fuck. So if anybody's jumping into it, be aware. In first person, it controls fine. In third, he's too heavy. He has way too much like inertia that's required to get him moving and stuff.
Yeah, I get that. Yeah, because there are certain parts where the third person movement is you need it to move quicker because you can start like hustling with it, and you don't have that in first person. So if they just added like a sprint option to the first person, that would have worked. It would have been really interesting. Imagine you're in first person the whole game, and you hear his voice. He's like, "Gotta get to town," and like you're just wondering what he looks like, and they just show that later in the game. Like that alone would have been like a what kind of moment. So yeah, I think it definitely is very unique. I think how much is it? $20?
That one, I didn't even check the price. I'm just guessing 39, but that's I don't know why I'm guessing that.
I'll double check, but
completely wrong.
I was gonna say for those who want to know if it's worth it, I can't speak to the port, but I think the game itself is very good. I don't want to speak
handheld.
For Karak,
the port is perfect. Sorry, not perfect, but is completely. There's no issues, and it looks really good handheld. It looks a little less good docked.
Okay, $30. I think that's a little much. I'll be honest. $30 on Switch for those who are interested.
And is the rumor that they're doing this, Matty, to make money, to make like
Soulstorm?
Well, or whatever. Like I was told that Not by them, by the way. But I was like, the rumor mill was that they're releasing this kind of thing to make money for, like, I don't know if it's Stranger's Wrath 2 or is it the Soulsborne game. Maybe they're just doing
probably. Soulstorm definitely has to come out this year. I think that's more likely. So I don't know. I mean, see, the thing is, I always tell this story, but I think it's so important, is I recall distinctly meeting Lorne Lanning, who, was the director of the whole Oddworld series, and I was, just hanging out talking to him because originally when Soulstorm was announced back in 2016, they told me I'd be doing voice acting for the game. I don't know if I'm still going to or not, but, I was just meeting up with the team and, like, just getting a chance to talk to people who created some of my favorite games. And I always remember the guy who runs limited run games showed up in, like, just a, casual jacket and jeans. And he was just like, hey, man, what's going on? They were talking briefly for, like, literally 30 seconds. He's like, so I think he said, like, new and tasty on the Vita. And Lauren was like, yeah, let's do it. And he's like, all right, man, I'll give you a call. They shook hands, like, agreed, like, they're going to put a physical copy out there. And that was it. So I don't want to put a large amount of thought into why they did Stranger's Wrath on the Switch, because it seems like, they're the type of company that's just like, yeah, go ahead. What hurts us with that, right?
Right.
We just have to port it, make sure it works, which it seems to mostly. So I don't know. I don't want to think too deep into it, but I still think that it is possible they're using it for funding for Soulstorm, because that game's been in development for a while, a really long while.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm just wondering if maybe, I wonder why that one, why that was the plan. Like, we don't see it on the Xbox X or anything.
Yeah, that's true. I think it's because Switch ports in general have been just naturally doing really good.
That's true, yeah.
Just the idea of playing a game on the Switch. I wouldn't be surprised if that game did well on the Switch. It just sort of fits that weird middle ground. Nothing's happening for a couple of months. I think it's a smart release. I think that's why Kakarot's doing so well for people, which I'll talk about when we get to what I'm playing. I just think, like, it's launched in the right time. Everyone's sort of looking for games to bide their time until March, when, for lack of a better word, shit they really care about comes out. But is there anything else you're playing?
No.
All right.
Nope. That's it for right now.
All right. Yeah, I'm just playing Kakarot still. I'm trying not to go too crazy, because I know how, like, you can easily, like, when time is free and I like, my gaming plate is relatively clear. I don't have, like, a ton of backlog games. You want to take everything on. I'm just sticking with Kakarot. I want to beat it this weekend, hopefully. I'm going to get the Platinum Trophy. I haven't gotten the Platinum Trophy in a while, but this game's Platinum looks pretty easy. So I've kind of made the call to myself, like, yeah, I'll do this. I love Dragon Ball. My thoughts have not actually, for once, usually, like, my thoughts develop and alter a lot from my initial impressions, which I posted on my channel when the game launched last week as we record this. But quite honestly, my thoughts are the same. I still like it, but I still think it's, like, a really average game that's for, like, a very specific audience. And even that specific audience, I think, can find pretty significant flaws in the game. Like, you could say to the audience, well, the side quests are good for fans, but the side quests still kind of suck in design. So it's one of those things where
punch 50 deer in the ass.
Yeah. And dude, it's honestly just strictly benefiting from the semi-open world Dragon Ball feeling. I hope they do this type of game again and fill out the world a little bit more. I hope that they add more activities. And they kind of treat the gamer with a little more intelligence. Some of the mini games, like the baseball mini game, I'm like, oh, this could be awesome. And it's just like a timing mini game. Same thing with fishing, where you're just like, dude, like, I'm just doing something.
Fishing's like point. A QTE or something. It just doesn't feel. Yeah. It's not even fishing. It's like, I don't know. It's like,
it's why not is like, it's Final Fantasy 15, like, that had good fishing.
Exactly,
right?
Exactly, dude. I don't get it. And when you and I were talking about this earlier, I remember you were a little hotter on it than me because you're a Dragon Ball fan. I loved Xenoverse. But same. I'm going to be honest too. I was two things shocked me. I don't know if you feel the same way about the combat, but so the B button combat is fine at the starting, but I feel it front loads the game so that by the time I was done, my actual hand hurt because I wasn't really moving my fingers much. It was just BBB Y, BBB X, and so later on, the battles just weren't even. Yes, you are using the trigger and doing your specials, but what I mean is,
it wasn't as interactive as it could have been.
Right, there was almost no reason for just the B attacks, I guess. You could almost have remember Devil May Cry has the auto combo thing?
Yeah.
That for easy mode, you could have just said normal or easy mode. And then dude, the orbs. They really frustrate. They're just there. And they're there for no reason. They're just
and you get
there.
such an abundance for how much you level up. It's really weird. Like you'll have 80. I have like 80,000, but like I have nothing to spend it on. Even after doing like the training room and stuff, I'm just like, why didn't they just make these like mission rewards or something to compel you to do quests? I think they I think that's when you start to talk about it more. That's where you realize the developers were probably like playing the game and went, oh shit, the game's kind of empty if we don't have something in between.
Yeah.
And I even say that as someone who loves, the occasional collect-a-thon, like we joke about Ubisoft-itis, but like sometimes those games can just hit right. Fortunately, this game isn't as bloated as a Ubisoft game, so I think that's why people aren't as hard on it, because what's worse is if it's a gargantuan title, which don't get me wrong, it's a lot bigger than most Dragon Ball games. It's like a good 40, 45 hours, I think, to complete it, and that's not including just all the side activities you can do, but it's not like Odyssey where you can note some collectibles are pretty much in every location, and then you have this huge story, and then you have points where you have to level up. There's like a lot to it. Fortunately, this game doesn't really suffer from that, which is why I think people are more forgiving. But I've seen some really high scores for the game from what I have played. Like I've seen 7s, I've seen 8s, and this is coming from someone who likes the game. I think that's way too high. It's absolutely like a wait for a sale as far as I've played. Does that change my enjoyment? Does that change my willingness to platinum it? No, but also, like I said, I am obsessed with Dragon Ball, so like I'm just kind of doing it out of principle because I enjoy it, but I enjoy it in a very like narrow-minded manner.
Also, I don't know about you, Maddie, but I don't know if I played this wrong, but I had some money, and it was like, do you want healing, whatever the healing potions are? There's one that does 50,000 healing, I think, or something.
That's the other issue I'll get into. Sorry, go on.
Dude, I was just going to say, I bought a couple of those, and any boss battle I went into, one thing I didn't like about the game is you'd defeat a boss, and then it would go to, for a brief second, like you were going to fly around, and then another boss. That I died a couple times because I was not prepared. Once I did the healing things, never died again. I had somebody telling me that the game was hard, and I'm like, dude, in the entire time I played the game, I died 11 times, and at least 4 of those were double bosses. Surprise bosses, I guess.
Yeah. What they needed to do, I think, to up the combat difficulty is I think the B or circle to melee would have been fine, but they made that sort of like the beatdown button, and they didn't get you interacting with like square or X is the key blast. They didn't make like enemies do certain things where it might be better to back off and shoot energy out of your hands. They didn't make it a boss where maybe countering could have been more intelligent than just going in. And I know Dragon Ball is about the battles. It's about like, epic clashes and all that stuff. But I just think they got a little complacent with their combat because it looks great presentation-wise. I mean, it looks great. Sounds awesome. I really like that aspect, and Dragon Ball games typically tend to nail that, but when you look at a fighting system as complex as Fighters, and even Xenoverse has more complexity than this game. Does, and that's saying a lot, man, because I know Xenoverse, like there's I watch a lot of Dragon Ball YouTubers, so I know there's a level of complexity to that game that you kind of only know if you really go deep on it. And it's great that that's there, but it's sad to see in a game that was marketed as a Dragon Ball RPG that it has less to offer in some of those areas than a legitimate Dragon Ball RPG, which really wasn't marketed as such. At least in Xenoverse, you pick your race, you build out your stats. I feel like Namco just used the wrong tagline to market the game, because Dragon Ball Z Kakarot is an RPG, but in a completely different way than what Xenoverse is. Like Xenoverse offers more of the RPG stuff and customization.
RPG light.
Yeah, like it offers the cool customization and all the powers you can use and the stat builds. Like that's nice about Xenoverse, and that's what I love about it. But for some people, RPG is just like playing as someone, and that's really it. And I don't mean like agency playing as someone where like you have control, but like to Namco, it seems like their terminology of role-playing game is like you're role-playing as Goku and friends in this world, and you can choose if Goku wants to go find some minerals, or if Goku and to me, when I saw that, I was just like, I mean, I still like it. I still think some of the RPG systems are solid enough for what the game's trying to do, because like the community board's cool. I think once I got it, I was like, okay, this is kind of like a unique thing.
Loved the community board.
Yeah.
Loved it. Yeah.
Yeah. I think that was one of the cooler parts of the game, because it kind of encouraged your knowledge of the Dragon Ball franchise at the same time as like buffing your characters out with skills. That was probably the most RPG system of it all. The super attack palette and everything, and support buffs, kind of like standard skill set things that you see in a lot of RPGs.
I learned more about the cartoon from the community board and the big piece of paper codex that show relationships, where it would show like Goku and then show like,
oh my god, that someone drew that. I was like,
dude, it was that not pure insanity? And what's cool is, depending on what you did, some of them would not unlock. Because I was like, I was done, and I was all, why are like these 3 characters still shaded out? And then I saw somebody else's playthrough, and I had some characters showing that they didn't. So there is some optional fights in some places. And then, I don't know about you, but eating a piece of chicken that raises my hit point up by 1 when I have 50,000 is really as uninspiring as ever. Like, I look at it, and and you can make a recipe and it'll raise it a little bit more, but when you have like 50,000 hit points, there's some stuff that's off scale. It's almost like in the last 3/4 of the game, they adjusted shit.
I was going to say that was kind of the thing I was getting into when you started talking about healing items, is the game has like a numbers problem. Like, it loves showing you big numbers. But when you get into the nook and cranny of it, and you start looking at like healing items and meals, you start to realize, like, why would I eat this meal before a boss fight that, gives me plus 20 melee attack and 500 HP when I have 2 freaking million health? And ladies and gentlemen, that's not an exaggeration. You get that much health points, and you'll hit for like 100,000 a shot, and it's like really satisfying, because Dragon Ball is, like I said, it's always about those big fights. So like hitting for 100,000 HP with 1 punch is like, that's awesome. But when you heal yourself, like healing for eventually 10,000 health is nothing. And you're like, what it's so strange.
It's got a numbers issue. I also had a problem with the skills, where it was just like, some are arbitrarily locked off, like by doing the battle training thing, which was fine. But I was really disappointed. I still like the game, but for the most part. I did rate it away for sale, but I think when it comes to those skills, I'm getting really tired of the +1 thing.
Like Kamehameha 1, 2,
right? Gotcha. And it didn't tell you what 1 and 2. You were like, what does 2 mean?
Yeah, you just assume.
You just assume. Is it like double the power, triple the power? Is it 50% of the power compared to the others? So there were like. Yeah, dude, it feels like if we talked to the devs and somebody was open about it, 3/4 of the way through, some things changed. And maybe they didn't carry on with some ideas they had. But graphically, you're right, though. Very cool.
That's what I've been playing, nothing else. So now we get into the news. All right, so we're talking about what would pertain best to us, Karak. We've talked on this show quite a bit about KotOR, how excited we are about the game, how many times we replay it. Both you and I pretty much replay this game annually. So that's why we want to headline the show when we start the news with this topic. The news has popped out late last night around, I think it was 11 p.m., that Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic is getting a remake. This was information that came out in originally 2015, saying that the remake would be out in about 2016. Then Jason Schreier came out and said that project was not yet greenlit. It had been put into stasis, which ended up being true, as it's now 2020 and we have not seen it yet. The same person who reported this information also told us that the Obi-Wan Kenobi TV show or movie series, I think TV show, sorry, was coming. That ended up being true. So when he came out with information that a KotOR remake was happening, people were more inclined to believe it. It gained a lot of traction in the news. I can personally say that from multiple sources, I had heard about this just before the news had broken, but I just was told, hey, KotOR something exists, and that's really it. I didn't have the information he had to go off of, which he created an article stating how one of his sources told them that it was a reimagining of sorts, combining elements from both KotOR 1 and 2 to determine certain things that would enter the Star Wars canon. And now, Karak, I made a video about this when it first broke this morning. When my video went live, I made a video about KotOR coming back a couple weeks ago. I have one coming out on Monday. So I've talked a lot about KotOR. I kind of want to just, this is you, man. You talk it up, and I'll of course interject because I have to, because that's who I am. But go crazy. This is all you. What do you think about this information? Are you excited? Are you concerned? Just lay it all out there.
I am tentatively, so I didn't have anybody, or inform me prior. I just saw it on like Cinema Escape or some weird thing. But so I don't like the idea. I'm just going to be honest. I don't like the idea of taking 1 and 2 and reimagining. From what it says, they're taking 1 and 2 and reimagining them so they fit within the canon. Mm-hmm. That's fine, because some stuff probably is in Legends, which is the non-canon stuff in Star Wars, and then some of the stuff like Rev and all that is actually considered canon. Honestly, dude, do you know what I'd like them to see? I would like to see this. No one else would want to see this. I would love for it to like start with you around a campfire with some Jedi saying, you thought you knew what happened, but here's a true story. And then it like either it's 3 and you don't play 1 and 2 or even a reimagining, or they honestly, I just got to say, I just don't like the idea of 1 and 2 reimagining. I would rather have remasters, which they won't do because they're not canon, supposedly. So they're going to do something like this. I'm not as excited, to be honest, for this as I would be for a here's 3. Even, again, if they just said, you thought you knew what happened, but you didn't. Here's what really happened, and now we're jumping into 3.
Almost like retconning right off the bat, you mean?
I'd be okay with that, because they have to. And
right.
If you understand the Star Wars canon, you're like, this has to happen. Yeah, and dude, we've seen it in Dragon Age, where they'll be like, well, you thought this happened, but really, as you go forward, it's like they adjust stuff slightly, not as big as this, right. But they adjust stuff. Graphically, it depends also on the engine they use, because this is EA. If this is on Frostbite, I'm not 100% sure I'm super interested. Well, Frostbite for some games is fine, but Andromeda was a disaster. I think that would kill
my excitement, yeah.
Yeah, so that'll depend on what they do. Also, the idea of mixing 1 and 2, I don't know if some of those voice actors are still alive. I think some have passed. So that'd be interesting to see if they do go back. On the other hand, revisiting Manon would probably be... It's the only time I've ever done a video about a level. I covered Manon and the Cradle and compared and contrasted them one time, which is a Thief 3 level, as my favorite levels of all time. Manon is just, it's my jam. I love that planet. So returning to that would be a dream come true. I just don't know if I want to get rid of the other stuff to do so. I mean, I'm excited. I don't know, dude. It feels like this middle ground to where they're not, like, almost like they're trying to be safe. We don't want to just do number 3, but we can't do 1 and 2 remasters, so we're going to reimagine them. And, dude, the story beats in 1 and 2 are good. I know you like 2 better than 1. 2 has its issues because they were forced to finish it quick, and then 1 doesn't maybe have as many choices, almost like Fallout 3 in New Vegas. But I loved 1, dude, and I loved all the story beats. I love the ending in 1. Because I was surprised. Gosh, yeah. I don't know how I was surprised, because when you look back at it, you're all, dude, seriously?
Yeah, it's one of those twists where you're like, it's so obvious.
It's so obvious. And it was not obvious, dude. To me, I was legit like, what the fuck? So how do you hit those story beats?
Right.
Or do you try? Yeah. I'm excited. I'm really excited for it, but also it's EA, so I don't know how much these rumors are real or not either. It'll depend. We're going to need, like, not only verification, but then a full year of development so that we know they'll continue to move forward, because EA, if there's anything EA does, they love to cancel Star Wars games.
Yeah.
I don't think people realize just how often they've canceled Star Wars games. So, like, don't get your...
They know.
Yeah, well, I mean, 1313 I would have liked to have seen, too. Do you think it'll be an RPG, though? Do you think... What I mean is, do you think it'll be a BioWare-style party-based RPG in that format, like Greedfall? I guess Greedfall is a current example. I was going to say we don't have as many of those.
I think if it's going to be like any game, the game I've always tied it to, since this rumor popped up, was Inquisition. That's kind of what I've been expecting.
Yeah, Dragon Age Inquisition.
Yeah, because they said they're reimagining, combining elements of the two games. And neither of the games, it's not like, for example, Dragon Age Origins, which was similar to KotOR's combat system, and then Dragon Age 2, which was more action-based. It's not like that. But I imagine if they're going to reimagine things, that would be the route they take at the very minimum. I think there will be party members. God, man, if they just made it like you're just one guy running around, that would instantly deplete all hype, because the companions in KotOR are fantastic. I've noticed when I read the comments on my video, the tweets, what you've just said, what I personally believe, everyone's caution lies with the reimagining of the story. No one wants the story to be touched. People don't mind if the combats or the exploration or the levels get touched, because those things naturally change. I personally, I love Manon. I'm with you. One of my favorite levels of all time. But if they're going to change that and try to, make it better with modern tech, I'm okay with them trying that, right? Like, because they could make Manon even better. And I think that prospect's exciting. Because, there's certain things that Manon couldn't do because it was held back or whatever. And so I think that type of stuff's exciting in the terms of a reimagining. But yeah, the general consensus has been, please don't change the story too much. I imagine, like you said, certain beats will change. Like, will you meet Mission and Zalbar in the underworld again? Or maybe you'll team up with them in the cantina instead in this remake. If they change little things like that, whatever. I'm not going to lose sleep at night. It'll be kind of like, as a hardcore fan, like, fun to see those changes. But if they start doing, and we don't want to get into spoilers, of course, for those who haven't played it, but when they start making drastic changes like, oh, the twist doesn't happen here or at all, we're telling you, like, off the bat in the beginning of the game, I'm, like, instantly going to be like, what are they doing,
Yeah, why? Because the question is why. Also, I don't know about you, but there's no real way to say this without being politically incorrect. But Star Wars, and when that was made, weren't necessarily at a politically correct time, and we are now. And I do feel that at times that's one of the reasons why, for example, Andromeda's NPCs, and I just said this to somebody, I was like, if you can tell me the name of an Andromeda party member, I'll fucking give you $500. But I bet you can guess.
I feel like that would be the easiest $500 I could win, but
because you can. Is that what you're saying?
I can't.
Oh,
that's
I
what I'm saying. Like when you said that, I'm like, I can wait.
And I can for 1 and 2, and that's because I believe that they soften a lot of edges. They try, and with Disney in charge now, what I'm worried about is that we wouldn't get the murderer kind of characters. We wouldn't get some of the darker stuff that maybe we got from the original games, because the honest truth is, and everybody will tell you this, Disney has issues with very particular things. And in gaming, because you're interactive, I think they get even more nervous, which is legitimate. There's a difference between watching a character shoot somebody in a cutscene and you doing it, right? Like, there is. I'm just a little nervous that they won't be able to flesh out party members or make them as sharp and as, like, noticeable as they did, because Andromeda was the same way. Andromeda's party members, Inquisition. I'm replaying Inquisition right now, and those are some of the worst party members. They're some of the most generic ass party members I've ever played in a game. Yeah. And it's because there was already the start of, like, a lot of political correctness. And I'm not talking about sexuality, if anybody thinks. I'm not talking about that kind of stuff. I'm talking about going into some of the darker stuff. They just don't seem to want to hit it. Andromeda was certainly like that. That would worry me. Dude, there's Jedi for a reason. Dude, fucking god damn it. Now I'm getting mad. Anakin killed babies. And the Boys TV show shows that people can still accept those darker characters. I want that. I just want that. I want it gritty.
I feel like, and I'm going to use a specific character from KotOR too. And for those who plan on playing it, just know I'm going to be kind of giving a brief synopsis on his backstory. It will be spoiled. But I think of, like,
I already know who you're going to talk about. That's who I'm talking about, actually.
Yeah. He's this guy you meet in the beginning of the game. You're like, oh, it's just some merc, whatever. He's who cares about him?
He's Karth number 2, as everybody thought.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he's your beginning male companion, whatever, and then you find out this guy actually was like a Jedi assassin.
Yep.
For years, and it's haunted him. And you're just like, for me, I found that revelation insane. And then you find out you can make the Jedi assassin a fucking Jedi later in the game, and I'm just like, that shit is awesome, right? Like that's a level of control you have over your party. I don't expect anyone to ever do something like that. I'm sorry, but that's just developers having a very special moment in a game, and I kind of accept that. But the level of building his backstory and taking him for a dark turn, I just don't see that type of stuff, like you said, happening under the Disney umbrella. You don't see Kreia keeping that gray moral middle ground. You don't see the kind of childish banter that you have with Bastila. Like I don't see that.
Yeah, I was just going to add that Inquisition already, I felt, started this, because in Inquisition there's a mod called like Harder or something, and what it does is it actually makes it so it's easier to get negative reputation from your party members. The reason why is you could almost kill everybody or do whatever, and no one would like leave. No one would be like, hey man, with Jade Empire you could have fucking like not pure anarchy, but if you did bad shit, people would confront you about it. And it just feels like they can't handle it. Again, this is just being negative. I don't want to be negative. It's just how about this? There's a lot riding on something that's incredibly complex. That might be the most complex reimagining there is in games right now, because they're reimagining a game based on an older canon that is now somewhat canon, but only in certain places. That's a tough. So that's going to be tough.
You might have a writer who's like, okay, this is what we're going to do with that, and it may be better than what original Atten was.
Absolutely.
And then Disney will go and say like, no, we're not even putting Atten in. It's like, great, I just wasted a month scripting this whole character arc, only for them to trash it, kind of thing. That's what we're most afraid of. I don't even think it boils down to, other things. It's just more so like how far can they go, right? Because it's not always about like the edginess or the darkness, right? It's more so how humanized people. How humanized can these characters become? Not just like, chest puffed out for the light side. It's like, it goes beyond that. And we saw in Jedi Fallen Order, you could have a little bit of complexity. I don't think it was like the best Star Wars story of all time. I think it was, a good return to form for Star Wars games, but even there, one of the best we've seen in a really long while didn't have that level. And of course, Karak and I won't speak for you rather, but I know I have a little bias because I love the game series. So it's going to be really hard for a game story to trump what KotOR has built. Very few stories are delivered the way KotOR does it. But I just think that there's no, you take a chance when you do that, right? You take a chance that you don't show all your cards and have someone be invested in Atten, but instead make the player work to find out. And he very well, or she very well may also miss that really cool part. And there could be someone right now who's played KotOR twice, thinks they know everything, and we just told them something they'd never heard before. Because I've seen it happen in my own comments where they're like, wait, what? Like, I didn't even know this happened in the game. And it's like, yeah. So I personally think that's more so where we're getting at. When they start to carry it a little bit further and ground these characters, because often it's about the fantasy, flippy magic of Star Wars, and it's like, that's cool. There is a part of Star Wars for that. But KotOR is great because immediately when you look at the armor, it's not huge Jedi robes that are elegant. It's like tattered leather with metal plates, and people are holding vibro blades. Not everyone's got a lightsaber. People got like blaster pistols, shoved in their shoe, and you're like, this is different. You immediately can tell it's much more grounded, and that leads to a grounded character approach. So I think ultimately that's what they need to really hone in on with this game.
I was just going to add that the people didn't realize how fucking A1 steak sauce dark the Kashyyyk and the Wookiee slavery stuff was, when you could basically like tell your Wookiee companions, just do my shit. You are my slave. If you were the dark side, which I was all the time. I did do a good side run through to see what the story was, but I was always as mean as possible. And because you could do that, man, dude, I just don't know. Because everything I did in Andromeda, They didn't have any subtlety. The subtlety, again, I know that people who play KotOR are like, how did you miss that? But there was still subtlety there, or subtlety with Anton. There was actually even some subtlety with Karth when you find out some of the stuff that happened there.
Yeah, Karth is absolutely a great example.
So you have this subtlety. I do not believe currently most game companies, other than CD Projekt Red, and I don't even hold them above anybody else, Greedfall's developer, and a couple others are able, especially Greedfall, because that actually had a couple surprises. Mm-hmm. I don't know if they're capable of subtlety, dude. They have to tell you. I don't know if they would be able to not tell you about Anton or give you such a fucking over-the-top hint that you wouldn't just go, well, he's obviously this, or I'm going to go look at his notepad and it'll be like, I killed assassins or I killed Jedi.
Have you ever thought, that maybe that's a decision made because games have become such a business now and are viewed as investments that maybe they're afraid that people will miss a moment, so they don't trust the gamer to find it themselves, which I find strange nowadays. Just to go off topic, I find it kind of strange because of how social media is, how YouTube is, how streaming is. It's very easy to discover a special moment because so many people are sharing their experience. But do you think that that's kind of why games have been designed that way now? It's not up to player discovery. Sometimes the game very much like puts it on a poster and hangs it in front of you almost.
Yes, but I also believe it is because they are fucking big-ass cheats and they front-load their games. Right? Dude, we know less than 20% of people finish their games. We absolutely know that.
Through the trophy and achievement stats?
Through the trophy and achievements, and even what the companies are saying, and even people in your own Discord. We have a gamer-centric Discord, so maybe people play them a little, but even in mine, people will be like, dude, I haven't beat Witcher 3 and Assassin's Creed, blah, blah, blah. So they need to front-load that shit so that they sort of latch on and get the gamer to play longer. And there's nothing at the end. And this has happened so many times that the only thing at the end isn't story, it's not some revelation, it's a new fucking +1 skill. And I get that, but at the same time, story revelations, for example, Greedfall, I'm having a hard time even thinking, well, the remakes of Baldur's Gate, Pillars of Tyranny, okay. Pillars of Eternity, but that's, again, two of those, or one of those is fucking a remake of the original, or not a remake, but is hearkening back to that particular gameplay style. Right. Yes, for sure. I think yours is even more than mine as an example, but I've lately, Kakarot being one of them, but some other games I've played, they're front-loaded as fuck. And they are because they know people, that's what captures the sale. For example, and you had to have had this, Matty, I will go into a forum and all have played, this happened with Kakarot. I played all of Kakarot. And I talked to people who did not and still reviewed it, which is fine. Let them do what they want. But they were much higher on Kakarot than I was. And one of the reasons why is because they had played far less. And it was front-loaded for the combat system, let's say. So it's easy and you feel powerful, right? But if you continue playing, you look at the numbers and you're like, this shit's starting to not make sense. But a lot of people wouldn't pick up on that, and that's the way gamers are right now. They're buying a lot of games, but they're not finishing a lot of games. And so your issue for sure, but I think a smaller amount of it out there is that we're getting this front loading it's making me furious because I don't believe gameplay systems are the only way to keep people engaged. A story like KotOR, dude, Manan allowed you to go to any planet at any speed, and they all had some big twist. Remember the fucking being a court judge or being a lawyer on Manan?
Oh, God, yeah.
Dude, it was crazy. And then going under Manan and going into the under, and you were just like, whoa, there's an under, like, water place in this? And then you go to Kashak, completely different stuff goes on there.
Each place has its own, like, it's the story. Here's the thing is, I think what we like about it so much is the storytelling is a centralized plot per location. Like Manan's got its own problem, Kashyyyk has its own problem, Dantooine has its own problem. Tatooine. Yes. You know, they all have their own individual problems, which make them feel separate as you go planet to planet. And then there's this overarching narrative that carries the story for you, the star maps, what's your secret, what's your history, learning more about your companions. Because the way I look at it is like, here's a perfect example, right? Let's take HK47, who is on Tatooine, sorry. He's on Tatooine. He's stored in a shop. He's available for sale. And unless you're paying close attention to you've never played, by the way. And unless you're paying close attention to the character portrait in the party selection menu and you realize I got one person missing, you don't know that you can just buy him and he's like one of the best companions in the game, right? You don't know that. And then you look at The Outer Worlds, game that I praise very highly. I think it's great still. I've played it twice. I still really like it. I understand some of its criticisms, but you look at that in Sam, right? You get this cleaning robot who's this companion who's kind of sitting on board on your ship, similar to how HK was in KotOR 2. You had to find all the parts to repair him. In The Outer Worlds, you can repair him, and it's cool that he's there. It's very reminiscent of those times, but they didn't build him out at all. And as I think about it more as we talk, I'm just like, did they not build him out as an interesting character with funny lines and bits of dialogue because he's missable? Is it because it's a AA game? There's a lot of other reasons it could be, but I look at that and go, based off our conversation, are they just afraid we're just going to miss content? And that's why, like you said, they front load it. They put as far as I'm concerned, I love the entirety of The Outer Worlds, but Edgewater is probably the most, outside of, it starts with that, Monarch. Outside of Monarch, Edgewater is probably the most complex, loaded area full of choices and diverging paths. And it's like, because that's the first 5-10 hours of the game.
Yep, it's front loaded as fuck. And you see it with MMOs where they'll release an expansion because maybe the end game is a little grindy and there's not as much stuff. You notice the missions start getting cut down. The first spot has 40 missions, second spot has 10, and you're like, uh-oh. You go, for example, what's the industrial place in Outer Worlds? What the fuck is Byzantine or not that?
There's Byzantine. There's Groundbreaker.
Byzantine, the city.
Yes, Byzantine.
The city is stunningly low.
Or Byzantium.
Byzantium. Thank you. It's stunningly low in content when you really look at what's going on. I liked it, but I was looking at it going like, man, it just doesn't feel as, like you said, is fleshed out. And I do believe that, both of those things are occurring. One, they are worried people will miss it. But dude, they don't flesh out. For example, the cleaning robot, you fucking get him, and that's the goal. With HK47, getting him is the start. That guy has 7,000 voice lines. He's usable inside the sand person place to translate if you want. He has all this character data for you, as in who you are.
It changes how you approach the game too, because you might get him on the last planet and be like,
or you might get him on the first one.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And you're like, now I can get him on planet 1, and that's what I started to do. I get him on planet 1 so I can hear everything he has to say. Exactly.
It's just not done. And Greedfall admittedly fell somewhat into the same, where the companions were given out at a speed that was blinding, which I don't think allows them to mature either. You know what I mean? Like sometimes you take a bite of steak and you hang out for a second. You don't just fucking grab. Well, I do, but you don't just grab the thing and shove it down, right? Because there's a period of time for that enjoyment. In these later games, I think I know you weren't as huge of a fan of Final Fantasy. Is it 14 or 15? What's the main one? The main newest one?
15.
The one that came out 2 years ago.
I liked 15. 15.
It was the story you weren't. I thought.
Here's the thing. No, you're right. You're right. I'm just so I clarify where I stand, so you can elaborate on your point more. I like 15, but it has aged horribly already. Like one of the quickest poorly aged games of all time.
Graphically or gameplay wise?
Gameplay, story should be better now because of the patches, the expansions. It should be better now, but gameplay wise, good grief. Oh my gosh, man. Okay. It's because it's just holding circle, and then it tells you in the middle of the screen, press square to parry. It's boring. I don't know.
Oh, I forgot. That's the game with it's like Sekiro, where you can't turn off the motherfucking icon.
But Sekiro's even a little more delicate about it, I feel like. But it's Final Fantasy 15 literally puts like the square button smack in the middle of the screen, and it slows the game down and goes square to parry, and I'm like, that's not fun at all.
Right. It's a QTE hidden. It's not
Yeah.
hidden, but what I mean is they pretend it's not a QTE, but it is.
It's there,
But what I
though.
was getting to is you've got that one and how it doles out characters. All these games dole out characters, and I feel, for the most part, what we've seen in the last decade is them doling that stuff out too quickly, as you said, because they're missing. People are missing them, and then also I truly, firmly believe that the way the games are set up, they're front loading them. They're also, I remember in Outer Wilds, you go planet to planet. Well, you can unlock 1 or 2 planets at the same time, but you still do sort of go in a weird. We all, I would say, have a close progression in how we unlock the places you can go. What I
Are you
didn't
talking
like
about
about
Worlds or Wilds?
World,
You said
Outer
Wilds.
Worlds. I apologize.
Okay, yeah, I was just making sure because I know they both involve planet
did.
travel.
So Outer Worlds, yes, Outer Worlds. Sorry, now you got me. I would say most of us unlock the planets in generally the same like steps, and in KotOR, it's pretty much very close to boom. You can go to these places, and I think what happens with devs too is maybe they're developing those planets at that speed, and by the time they get to the end planet, maybe they're close to the end of their money and their resources and their time and their QA. And so we don't get as much. We just didn't get that with old BioWare games. Even Jade Empire didn't do that, which is crazy because Jade Empire had such a weird world. You didn't go to other planets, you went to other lands. But you go to the end lands, and there was still a bunch of shit to do. In fact, there was almost 2 endings in Jade Empire if you really... compared to who you fight, what you find out about the main bad guy, and then the main bad guy. I don't know, dude. I don't think they're done much. I don't, other than, like I said, the B and maybe Witcher, but the B creators and the AA creators do it. But I don't see EA doing that. Yeah. That's what I'm worried about. Jesus, yeah. We went in a long spiel, but that's what I
mean, hey, you know, for one of our more longer spiels, we definitely stayed on topic and I think properly elaborated where we stand on the potential remake here. And
what do you want to see? Sorry.
Like no, I was actually done.
Player-wise, what do you want to see? Sorry, character-wise, what would you, let's say you chose 5 or 4 player group members. Is there any races, classes? I would like to see them go out of their way to not do the same. Who are the blue tentacle dudes?
They have the Twi'leks.
Yeah, I would love to see them.
I've been corrected on that a million times.
Salacious Crumb's character, I can't remember the little fucking goblin-looking dude. What would you like to see as a party member?
Obviously Bastila. I think she is a good representation that a Jedi can kind of be like very immature and grow. She's very like young and cocky, and she kind of goes beyond that eventually. I really appreciate that about her as a character. I like the idea of Juhani, but I think I could live without her. You know, I think she's great because she's this fallen Jedi at the Grove. She's almost like a myth on Dantooine, but you can convert her and then or like keep her awful and have her join your team. So I like that approach there with her, but I think I could live without her. HK has to come aboard. We're just talking KotOR 1, right?
Here's the thing. Ignore all that. Let's say it's new characters.
Oh, new characters. Like, who do I just want to see in general?
Races, anything. Classes, what would you like to see? Like, that just... And you can think inside the box, but I'm just saying, is there anything
I would like to see a
Transdoshan,
if that's possible.
Yeah, me too.
I would really like that, just because I think of Republic Commando and that mission where you're on the abandoned Republic ship and just like everyone's dead and the Transdoshans are these just vicious warriors, and like imagine just getting like a melee based Transdoshan warrior
tank
who's in your party. Yeah, that would be, because you know it's always the Wookiee, right? Like Zalbar was the big one. I forgot his name in KotOR 2. He was the other big Wookiee tank character who does a ton of damage. He can use like the frenzy ability and just eviscerate people. I would love to see like a Transdoshan take place of that. I think if possible, that'd be really neat. Or kind of make him like a Krogan, like give him a shotgun and just kind of call it a day. That would be really neat. I'm not like an expert on Star Wars races. I know.
Was there any from the prequels? Any races? Any or droid types that? Because I've always liked the assassin droid in the
Yeah, of
original
course.
movies with the can head.
Yeah, that would be interesting if they like restructured HK and like I just feel like if you abandon HK, that'd be almost foolish. I feel like if you're gonna put droids in the game, you have to keep T3. You know, the little R2D, because he reminds you of R2D2, but he's his own thing. Somehow they managed to do that, and then HK like I just mentioned with Sam from The Outer Worlds, it's very much I can see what you're trying to replicate, clear as day here. And even in my review, I was like, there are some characters in The Outer Worlds that aren't very good. That was one of them, because it was a clear mimic, and they didn't expand on it at all. I feel anything not HK would just be called a copycat, and I believe rightfully so, because, you know, he's just got a charm that adds to the game. Just having like a goofy assassin all the time is great. I would like to see Jolie again, a character like Jolie, just a neutral,
mentor,
bothered old man. I just think that kind of character is great. I've never really it's an interesting question you've asked, because anytime I thought about it, I just always thought they'd bring back the same crew, but I've never thought what they could change and what new like people they could bring into the story.
I would like a Geonosian. The tall blue guys who are a tech scientist character would be awesome. Like he's the one in charge.
I got one.
Go ahead.
You know how on the cover, this was supposed to be the case. You know how on the cover of Knights of the Old Republic they have a Selkath?
Mm-hmm.
Have one of those be a companion. Yeah. Have one of the guys from Anon be an actual companion. That'd be awesome if they just added him in.
Dude, and their voice actors, I don't know why, but Manon, it's just always going to be, but
yeah.
And their wet
so
look.
Weird.
Oh, yeah. So fucking cool. I would also like, it would be impossible unless they change. I don't know how this would be possible. I would like to see a desert person. I don't know how their mythology would work, and if you would ever be able to sell that, whether maybe you save them and he's the only one left and now you're a part of his tribe, but him going and being an alien out of sorts kind of thing, because they don't travel off of Tatooine, I think. I could be wrong, but the idea of one of them in your starship and his reactions to seeing trees, like that kind of shit would excite me. And I'm thinking, for some reason, I keep thinking prequel movies for all mine. But yeah, I would like to see two different ones. Like you said, Manan. What are they called on Manan?
Selkath.
Selkath. Yeah, those guys are
A1. Tusken Raider is a good idea for sure. So, yeah, there's a
we'll
lot
see,
that
man.
they can pick from.
It's a reimagining, so hopefully we get, if they're going to do it, like you said, maybe add in the more popular ones and then maybe add one or two, separate
new ones. Yeah, I'd be open to that. If they do light touch-ups like that and keep similar beats, I think we'll be in good shape. But
did you have Force Lightning in KotOR?
Of course, yeah. Well, you got. I think you have to be on the dark side for that. That was the other thing, man. Is like I was just playing KotOR 2 for a video, and I made a couple dark side choices while saying I continued on said path, pretty dedicated dark side stuff. And a substantial story moment happened when my character woke up. I had a new ability called Force Crush, and I was just I'm just like, man, like this is what I'm talking about. Yeah, I
love that.
I was wondering for so long too. See, that's what's great about these games. I remember in the KotOR 2 commercials, you see at the end of a trailer your character lift them up and then do the Force Crush, and I'm like, man, they never put that in the full friggin' game.
Oh, right. But it was a dark side power.
Yeah, and I'm like, oh, they locked it too. Like, how old is this game? And I'm just finding that out.
Also,
ridiculous.
I love the D&D style because that was based back in the day on D20. If they are going to do that, I personally found that every single time I played that game, I ended up hinging on the double weapon. I would like to see them balance that because I firmly believe that was overpowered. Once you got two weapons, it really didn't matter if they were I never died. Like, it didn't really matter because you would just, if you had another tank with you, you guys would cleave through guys in such a stunningly fast fashion. So the reason why I was asking about Force Lightning is because I don't know what rules have changed now for what Jedi powers. For example, Samuel L. Jackson got a purple lightsaber. They added that to canon. Can you get a purple lightsaber now in the new KotOR? Okay. Do you see what I'm saying? Yeah. So there are some things I would like them to, if they're going to reimagine it, go full force and, get some of that shit in there so that it sort of solidifies it.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully, we don't have to wait too long.
Yeah.
Now we move on to our second bit of news. We're talking about Dying Light 2. It's another delay, Karak. Obviously, this news section won't be as long. What's interesting about the Dying Light 2 delay is that unlike a lot of the other delays that we talked about last week, being Final Fantasy VII Remake, Avengers, Cyberpunk, they all received dates after their delay. Meanwhile, Dying Light 2 was apparently supposed to launch in spring. I wasn't aware of this. And now it's been pushed back to just whenever. They haven't even given it a date. They just said we're delaying it, and I don't think they said indefinitely, but they just said we're delaying it with no date in sight. And does that concern you, for lack of better words?
I have had two people, I'm not saying this is true, but I saw it somewhere else, and I did have two people contact me to tell me that MS did purchase Techland. Grimblade brought it up, and I was like, I haven't heard that. And then I asked a couple people, and they're like, that is a rumor. They also just yesterday opened their new office. They switched everybody and moved them. Indefinite is really interesting. There's no date, like you said. However, that is not as unique of a situation if Microsoft did purchase them. Especially if Microsoft is like, you guys can now use as much time as you want. Techland also removed their publishing part. So that means they aren't. It does indicate that somebody else is going to be doing this, which does sort of hinge towards, could it be another company? Ignoring that rumor, because we don't know if that's true, it could just be bullshit. Indefinite's weird. Normally you get a date. On the other hand, it's cool, right? I think it's, if they're like, well, you talked about it with Doom, which we're going to talk about, so I won't mention it, but Doom Eternal is looking pretty good. That's my personal opinion. Delaying it is good if they need it, and if Techland isn't giving an exact date, I'm actually pretty okay with that. It doesn't put anything on their plate as hitting a certain date. They're just like, we're doing it at some point, and we're still working on it, because I haven't heard anything about it being canceled. So I'm pretty happy. Either way it goes. It sound like, let them... Dude, it looks awesome. The idea of the world's changing. Let them do what they need to do. That's just my personal opinion.
Yeah, I can't say I'm surprised, but in a good way, because I remember watching the 20-plus minute of gameplay that they dropped.
Of Dying Light 2?
Yeah, and I remember watching that and going like, man, you make some pretty big changes to the world when you make a choice. Like, they've shown two now, and they've been, like, substantial. And so I look at that, like, one of them drains a part of the world to make it explorable. And I'm like, that's big, ladies and gentlemen, because much like what Karak and I were talking about with KotOR, we were like, that's something you can miss. You make a choice. You can't explore that part of the world. Like, someone very well may have built a part of the game that 10% of players will see in its lifetime. Right. And that, it takes a lot for a company to say, yeah, we're going to do that. We're going to make something that 10% of players will see, provided that stat is accurate. And I think that's admirable. And so I think that when you look at what they've shown in their product, it makes sense why they're going to delay it. If they're going to do something like that, obviously they've shown off two, but I think there are going to be more choices like that. And I'd like to see that personally as someone who values that in the game. So they can take their time. Dying Light 2 is definitely one of the more curious games we're getting because I think despite how well received it is and how many people love it, I still think it's a situation where no one's, from what I've seen, no one's like fully bought in the sense of like, this is going to be a great role-playing game. Because when you think Dying Light, you think parkour zombie killing and customization. At least, just based off the identity of Dead Island and Dying Light 1, that's what it is. And to suddenly have it be a very story-focused game written by like Chris Avellone and company and having it have significant choices, like that's oddly different. And so I feel like that's why you saw so much noise for Cyberpunk and Final Fantasy and a little for Avengers, but I feel like things on the delay front for Dying Light was more like, all right, we'll wait. And I found that surprising because it looks just as promising as something like Cyberpunk. And I know that may be crazy to say in a world where CD Projekt Red is the bee's knees, but I really think what Techland's building looks super impressive. And we already know they can deliver on the gameplay with Dying Light. Like, that shit's fun. So if they can just make these choices count as much as they've seen, the delay doesn't surprise me whatsoever.
Yeah, and the opposite of what you said is also true. So if 10% of people see the underwater section, that means 90% won't, which means the story writers have to make sure all the narrative makes sense for shit that's not
Good
said.
point. Yep.
And if you're, let's say they showed you one, I didn't see that, by the way. I didn't see the underwater thing.
It's like at the tail end. They like pull a switch and it drains the water.
So let's say that's one, and they probably wouldn't show you the only one. So let's say there's like 6. Even 6. Well, no, let's say there's 3. Even 3 would be massive, both showing people new stuff, but also making sure you're in line with people not unlocking or making those changes. That's massive. There's so much writing, so many storyboards that people would have to make sure all make sense, so you don't have somebody saying, yeah, go ask Bob, and you're like, Bob? And they're all, oh shit, Bob's underwater because we didn't drain it and move him into that spot with our NPC creator, all that kind of stuff. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with delaying it. I also agree. Dying Light 2 maybe doesn't have the positivity of Cyberpunk, but there's a lot of interest. Not positive, like this is going to be the greatest, but a shit ton of just sheer eyes on it versus eyes on it and automatically being positive. I think they're in a good spot too, because if it's eyes on it and it's positive, that leads you to all kinds of problems. I would rather have people just be interested than interested and hyped, because man, not hitting that hype is pretty easy. And Chris, I'm sure probably, I don't know him, you know him more than me, but I'm sure he's one of those guys that's like wants to nail it. So I'm sure for him, more time is better. And I'm sure for them it is as well. It feels like something different than Dying Light, that's for sure. I mean, what I mean is what we're going to get feels different than Dying Light.
I think Dying Light 2 kind of tailors to the strengths of Chris more. Not that Jedi Fallen Order story was bad, but
Chris Avalon.
Chris Avalon, sorry.
Okay. No, that's right. I was just making sure.
I not that Jedi Fallen Order story was bad. It just felt like it had, I think Chris plays better with agency than other writers.
Yeah, so that was just 1, 2, 3, really.
Yeah, I was going to say, I feel like Fallen Order had a little less, and this is once again not saying it's bad, it just had less punch to it. Felt more like, a Jedi story, and there were very interesting moments, so don't get me wrong, but it wasn't like, that was a game that when I played, it wasn't like the writing really is significantly standing out to me. And that's one of the first times that's happened when he's been on the team, and I'm not one of those people who make Chris into a god. And by the way, I apologize, I've hit my keyboard tray like 4 times in the last like minute, so if you hear any banging, it is me. Anyway, yeah, I that's like one of the first times it's happened. Not that he's like an end-all be-all and like he can't just have like a solid writing job, but I think he plays best in that area with choice, which is why I think you're seeing a little bit of an impact there with Dying Light, and why it probably will take more time to do what they seem to want to do with that team.
Is he a mercenary on that? As in, is he doing
freelance?
Yeah, is he doing the cleanup? Is he doing all of it? Is he leading the team?
I want to say he's got to have a big part in it. I'm pretty sure he's up there because, man, he's the one who presented the game at Xbox's conference.
Oh, right, he did.
Yeah,
he did.
I think he might be above writer. I thought it's like creative director or something like that. Like, I'll have to double check, but he I don't think he's just a writer for that game. I think that
I also
they
think
sign him
he's
on
one of the few, Matty, that could probably do zombies a service. As in,
which we need.
He's older, so he remembers the old zombie movies, which were actually fights against like industry. That's why the original Day of the Dead was based in a mall, because they were teasing like kids going to the mall and buying. That was the entire thing. It was a play on the current civilization. I think Chris is one of those guys that would be able to do a bunch of that shit. Like he's older, but he also writes very well. He's pretty age agnostic. Like, I haven't noticed where it's like, oh, I don't want to use the meme, boomer. But what I mean is, he can write a character of any age, and it's well played. It feels like there could be a lot going on behind the scenes with him really getting some time. Yeah, I don't know, man. I'm excited for it, or interested very highly in it.
Yeah. Well, we'll see. Hopefully we get a release date sometime this year, which is something I didn't expect to say. But anyway, let's talk about Doom Eternal. So we had a lot of impressions pop out over the last couple of days of people who got 3 hours of hands-on time with Doom Eternal. We were not included in that, which is totally fine. So I just want to make sure that's out there right away. But we did take our time to watch a lot of previews. I watched 4 because for me, I had explained, and I won't start off, but I'm saying I've just explained how I've been a little with Doom, less so than many who seem to love Doom. Like, I still like it, but not nearly as much as others. So I wanted to make sure I investigated properly. Karak, what's your opinion on Doom 2016 and how you now feel about Eternal?
I mean, first of all, it looked way farther along than the delay would indicate, which I was really happy about. Graphically, I mean, slickness, there was no FPS issues I could see and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how a story is going to play out. Like, I want to
very story heavy.
Right, and I want to sort of I can't remember, I had a term for it in my review for the original, but it's like death parkour. You know, it's like you're jumping off things, you're shooting shit, and it occasionally stops you. I do worry that it'll be like, if you're not finishing somebody, which I'm not a big fan of finishing everybody, a special move. I actually I liked those, but I do not want to hinge on those.
Yeah, you get
Dude, you do. So I guess I'm just worried how it'll come together, but what I saw footage-wise, graphically and the enemies, that all looks really cool. Looks fun overall. I don't think we saw anything that was super shocking. I would just say it was running really well. So the delay, if not pure optimization, I would assume is about balance and pacing. That's my assumption, that their delay was like, we need to make sure you don't get too numb, but you also don't get stopped every 4 seconds by a cutscene.
Right.
So that'll be the interesting part, is to see how it all comes together. But what I saw looked really good.
Yeah, as someone who, because you mentioned pacing, as someone who I thought the main gripe of mine with Doom 2016 was that I didn't think the pacing was really that great. It didn't vibe with me all that well. And so I was pretty happy, actually, to see more cutscenes to sort of break up the flow. It seemed a lot more story-driven. It's apparently about, like, heaven and hell now, and you're going down to Earth because the demons have made their way to Earth. And I really like that premise alone. You know, it reminds me of all games. Well, I shouldn't say of all games, like it's surprising, but Diablo 3. I remember, you know, because I'm not like a huge diehard Diablo fan. I remember just playing it with my friends, and you start to get to the later chapters of the game, and I'm like, man, like, you know, we're fighting all these like undeads and demons, and I'm like, I want to fight like angels too, and, you know, see like golden pathways with like blue holograms. Like, it's exactly what I envisioned when you get to that point in Diablo 3. And I just thought that was alone really cool, because it, you know, just showed like both sides were kind of corrupt. And I sort of expect Doom Eternal to lean into that, which I think is more interesting than anything I can remember from the first Doom 2016. The first Doom that came out in 2016. I know the codex was pretty beefy. Maybe that offers more than what I know of. But I'm happy to see more cutscenes, because I think it breaks up the flow. I'm happy to see more parkour segments, more like platforming. Once again, I think just shoot. Even the developers had said that it felt like their game in the last act was, you know, arena, hallway. And I believe truly when the developers start to notice that, then that means that there is an issue at hand. And if they can talk transparently about it, I think that means they're actively addressing it, or they believe they are trying to, because you're not going to put a spotlight on a problem in your upcoming game, or at least you're, you know, smartly you wouldn't. So what I saw made me really happy. I was really excited about it. I was just overall a little worried, just because I like Doom a lot gameplay wise. I just don't want it to become exactly what you said about the punchy glory kills, losing any type of sizzle, and it's just being that carrying the game the whole time. I'm happy to see so many more elements tied to it, but yeah, like I said, I worried and excited, right? Like it looks great. Like, I know it's gonna be fun. It's just about that snapshot of fun makes sense. Does as they said, 20+ hour adventure. They said like well over 22 hours. Will it be fun that deep? That's my main question. What do you think about that? Do you think 22 hours for this game Sorry, 22 plus, because that's what their exact verbiage was. Does that sound too long to you? Obviously, we can't say without the full game in hand, but does that sound like on paper it would be a lot?
I just don't always believe the numbers because,
right.
We've talked about this, 40 hours, and it turns out to be fucking 20 or 12.
But sometimes it's like Greedfall 45, and it took me 30, and it took me 45.
But on the other hand, was that, not to argue that point, but was that also because you liked Greedfall and sat in there because you were enjoying picking apart pieces that maybe other people didn't?
Yeah, no, it's definitely a good point. Yeah, you're not picking apart my argument. You make a good point.
That's also why the devs may have said 22 or whatever. Yeah, double. So, yeah, 20. Let's just say 20 plus.
20 plus, yeah.
I would agree that it could be long, but also, and so it could, I just don't know what they mean by that, because if it's 20 hours of running and gunning, the best running and gunning ever, I personally would probably become numb. Even if it was the most amazing shooting ever. But I would never hold that against them, because I'd be like, well, dude, it's just never stopped being amazing. It's just that I became numb. But I don't think that's what it is. I think they're adding the cutscenes and all that. Yeah. I personally believe if it's about heaven and hell, most likely you might get that thing where it's like 12 hours is in heaven, 12 hours is in hell. That kind of, maybe we get something like that. What really makes me wonder, though, is upgrades. Strangely enough, whenever anybody talks about length in a shooter, and we know they already had upgrades in the original, are you going to consistently be offering the gamer like an organic reason to use all the weapons that you've got, and will you consistently be unlocking new stuff? And I don't mean consistent every 3 minutes. I just mean like,
a lot of people in the previews were saying you get, sorry to interrupt you, but just so you know, like a lot of people in the previews were saying like you get a shit ton of upgrades in the beginning. Like the first 3 hours, people, like a consistent quote I saw was, in the first 3 hours, I unlocked more than I did 2/3 of the way through Doom. So take with that what you will as you go on.
If it wasn't accelerated, as we've seen sometimes where they'll accelerate it when they want to show people what the game can do. And so they'll do those unlocks quicker. If not, I hope they continue all the way through, and I hope they're tangible. That's all that matters. I also don't know if Doom works well if you have more than your 1 through 9 on a keyboard for weapons. So I think the big issue becomes, what does 1 through 9 represent when you start the game, and what does 1 through 9 represent 20 hours into the game? When it comes to weapons and items. So yeah, I don't know, the platforming and stuff, like that's also probably secrets they're adding, like how do you get to this secret fucking skull that'll give you an achievement. It's a long time. I mean, I can't think of another straight shooter that's ever been that long. Straight shooter. Serious Sam, which I adore. Those are not that long.
You could say open world RPG, like a Fallout game maybe, but like that just isn't in the same ballpark. Like straight shooter, Borderlands, yeah.
Is Borderlands 20 plus hours?
Borderlands is longer than that, for sure.
Yeah, but Borderlands is also collecting and up,
like RPG.
Like, yeah, I don't know.
You're just talking like Call of Duty almost, like FPS.
Right.
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I mean? Because I think if they try to go too far out, people will be like, what the fuck? It'll be a little like Rage 2. Admittedly, I liked Rage 2 more than some, and you liked it more than even I. Yeah. But they tried to bite off some stuff that didn't necessarily work as well as the main. I think the main shooting in that game is great. In Rage 2 is fucking, it's so
feels
fun.
Great. Yeah, they got a good system.
So let's say you've got so fun, Rage 2, let's say you ignore the driving. Would I consider that amazing shooting fun if there was nothing else and it was 20 hours of just that? I don't think I would consider it bad, but I do worry about numb. Just generally numb. We haven't had that before. They could also be the first one. Also, I shouldn't ignore the fact that people have replayed Doom 2016 like 10 times.
Yeah,
and that's the same shit.
I've seen that a lot.
So, you know what I mean? So they might be aiming at the fans who have no issue going over redone content, let alone brand new content all the time. You got to get new locations in, new weapons, new upgrades. If they do it, that'll be redefining shooters, I think. If they were let's say they hit 20 hours of just balls to the wall, amazing shooting from 1 to 20 hours, we will be talking about that game for a decade.
Yeah. That's what's exciting. That's
exciting. Like it's legitimately scary, but also that would be fucking amazing. If you and I at the end of the year were saying that game is on game of the list for just this year, but also like in a decade we may still be talking.
I saw one preview saying like if it accomplishes what it looks to set out to do, it's exactly what you said. Like we're going to be talking about it for a while. It's like G-Man Lives or something like that.
Yeah, G-Man Lives, I think.
Yeah, because Camelworks had sent him to me. He was just like, check out his preview. You know, it's a really good one. I watched it. I was like, I can see where he's coming from. If the progression holds up, if the storytelling is I guess there and interesting. Because the Codex in Doom was actually pretty impressive for the type of game it was. You could see they cared about their universe. So, if they just keep building with that, man, I mean, my goodness, they really could have something special there. I just hope, I am a bit, not everyone is, but I like having like progression, unlocks, knowing something's there. And then there's this, it's all about pacing because then there is that point I do want to be let off the leash and play with my toys essentially for like a good couple hours. But the thing with Doom 2016 for me was I was let off the leash like 6 hours in advance. So like it got to a point where, as the developer said, like arena, hallway. And I was like, all right, I'm kind of ready for this to be done after a couple hours. So and they could just honestly, they could go on for like 8 hours. If they make the arenas interesting and there's thought-provoking bosses and different ways to traverse, then I have no problem just playing fun games. That was one thing that I really started to touch back on in the last year is, just fun games. Like if you look at my game of the year list, I fucking put Dragon Quest Builders in there because it was just fun as shit to play, and it's still fun as shit to play. So, stuff worth keeping in mind. All right, we do have one more piece of news before we get into patron questions.
I was just going to say real quick.
Sorry. I should have done my usual thing and asked you.
I was at G-Man Lives.
Maybe it's lives.
Dude, they got to have different PR people than us. That's all I was going to say. He's very small and went to the preview. I've always been...
He gets good views, I think I saw.
He does, but I've always been really surprised at like what PR companies pick who to do what. And whenever I've asked a couple of people outside of PR who've left PR for games and been like, how the fuck did you decide this? Like, not even in a negative way, but like... Can I work towards getting on this list or this list? It's always interesting to me. You'll see, like, especially Australian, by the way. You'll see that a lot. He's Aussie. A lot of Australians get chosen for that kind of stuff.
I was going to say, I can kind of explain that because I was talking to Camel and he was like, did you like decline an invite to the event or something? I was like, no, I didn't get invited at all. And I'm not surprised. I think I'm very fair with Bethesda, and I'm not afraid to praise them like I think a lot of people are when I think they do something right, but I'm also very critical of them openly, and I'm sure Bethesda probably doesn't want to invite me in because despite how great Doom looks, I think it'd be smart to invite someone like me who's like, oh, wow, even like Matty likes that game, but still, for them, they probably viewed it as, why would we invite him, which I get, I understand. But I was talking to Camel, and... as I talk to a lot of YouTubers who I'm friends with who are in the Bethesda community, like Juicehead and so on, we've kind of realized like think of like PlayStation in the US versus PlayStation in Japan. Like things are just ran totally different, or more knowingly would be probably Nintendo America versus Nintendo Japan. Like just remember there was that whole issue with like copyright strikes, uploading gameplay footage, all that stuff online. That was a big problem for Nintendo, and like the American side was like fighting to be like, just let them do it, and like Japan was kind of locking it down. From what I've sort of gathered, and this isn't like a slam by any stretch because I love the American people who I've worked with, and I've met the Australian people, and they're cool as hell too. I just think there's a lot less Australian-based creators in the first place, and a lot of them happen to be big. Sure. So Camelworks is big, G-Man is pretty big. Despite, maybe not, like maybe I may have more subs than him. He does get great views, but I may have more subs than him. But he has a lot for an Australian creator. Skill Up, that's another one. But I think he's been more openly critical of Bethesda, so I don't think he was invited to play Doom Eternal, or maybe he declined it. I don't know. I don't want to speak for him. But I think there's a difference in how PR is ran for like the Europe and Australia versus here in the US.
Sure. Yeah, that is. I didn't know that they were all Australian, not all of them, but you're absolutely right. That's not even a ding on them. It is for sure location based. As well.
Interesting. Ever since 76, I haven't gotten an invite. Once again, I'm not entitled to it, but like Rage 2, I know for a fact I was like one of the biggest people covering that game. Like I made trailer analysis, news discussions, previews, everything. I cover that game from top to bottom, and they had a preview event for it. And I, once again, not entitled, but I didn't get an invite. And I was just like, that's kind of strange when, I definitely was like, you type it in before launch on the search bar and you could see like just me. Not like I was the only one, but I was up there. And I was like, okay, strange why they made that decision. But I think it just boils down to something we've said in the past with review copies and stuff. Either A, I just don't fit their list, or I don't fit what they're looking for, or they don't think they'll maximize for me, which is fine. Or like we say with a lot of review copies, it's that idea of just like, will they be so critical that it hurts us? How much reach do they have when they are critical versus when they're very positive? That's another thing.
And Rage 2 was weird because I got a code prior to IGN for Rage 2.
Yeah, Rage 2 is weird, and more to that, like Kakarot was weird because apparently Xbox codes went out for Kakarot early, and I could have gotten an Xbox code, but like, I'm just like, I always say like, hey, I'll take anything. I didn't specify it, and because of that, like, I don't think I got a code early. I think I could have gotten an Xbox code a lot earlier than I had originally anticipated, but just the way wording was, they were just like, oh, he's on another list.
You got probably popped into another list.
Yeah, it's all about lists, and you just don't want to screw that up.
I don't want to talk about on camera, but I'll tell you about. Remind me after this, and I'll talk about it next week or the week after. But dude, I'm in the midst of another one that is just. It's so confusing, Matty. It's so fucking confusing. Yeah. 2 different codes from 2 different groups with completely different requirements for the same thing. It is, and I'm just looking at going, what in the, with one early, of course you'll go with the early one, right? Like that only makes sense. And some discussion back and forth, not dogging on anybody, but it's a company I've dealt with in the past that has done this already once, where you're just like, these are the weirdest embargoes. Obviously there's a person who's doing these things. But remind me, because I got to tell you about this one, because it's another one where you're just like, what the fuck? Like, how do you even, like, you almost need an agent who just says, everybody who's got a code of any kind for this game, contact me, and I'll decide which, it's too hard, I think, for you and I, just by ourselves.
Yeah, and I think it's hard on the people who handle it, because there's just so many of us.
Horrendously.
Yeah, there's so many people who are maybe even smaller than us who got like 10K subs, 20K, 30K, whatever, and they're like, oh, I'll shoot my shot. And I totally understand that and encourage it, because like I remember when I had 20K subs and I got my first ever review copy, it was Saints Row 4. And I remember like just jumping for joy, like legit, like up, down, because I was so excited that like someone gave me a chance.
That's awesome.
And then Ubisoft invited me into their program. They started getting me codes. So, like, I'm happy that, hopefully, like, if I don't get a code, I hope that someone's getting that moment. Like, that's what I hope for.
Hopefully they don't hold it from everybody, which we have seen as well.
Exactly. Yeah, that's kind of what I hope for in the scheme of things. But, Doom's looking great, man. Is there any closing thoughts?
From what we've seen, it looks a good deal, like they have a good deal of time to make it even better, which is cool.
Yes, I agree. And congrats to Bethesda on seemingly having something looking pretty good for them. All right, let's talk about Half-Life Alyx and then get into the patron questions. So just an interesting little tale here, because there have been so many game delays, and one of the rumors has been that Half-Life Alyx will receive a delay, but there was recently an AMA on Twitter about the Valve time and answering questions on Half-Life Alyx. And here's what an official account wrote. With the exception of some tweaks to the absolute final scene, the game is done. Lots of us at Valve, as well as playtesters, have tested through the entire game multiple times. Right now, we're primarily polishing and fixing bugs, which is where we'd hope to be at this point in the development cycle. We're confident we'll hit our intended release, and we let the Valve time happen before we announce the game. One other thing to note is that all of the Half-Life games are currently available for free on Steam for you to play if you want to catch up or get filled in on the lore, rather, before you play Half-Life Alyx, which I will personally be taking advantage of. I played the orange box. Oh, man, I think that was like 11th grade. I couldn't tell you a thing about it. So I'm taking advantage of that. My friend told me about a mod where you can play it co-op. So we're going to play Half-Life 1 and 2 co-op together. And yeah, it should be a really good time. So we're gonna do that to catch up for the big VR game. But do you trust these words is really the main talking point, I guess. Do you believe that they'll actually get the game out on time and that the Valve time will not play a factor?
Yeah. I mean, yeah, but I also believe that they don't care if it doesn't. Mm-hmm. If that makes sense. They're
making money either way.
But they want to sell the Index, which is their VR system. And
I think they need to hit this date, right? Because of like the next gen consoles and stuff. You kind of want it sooner than better.
Especially if PS5 does a VR within a year of their announcement. Rumor is they're supposed to show something on February 4th. That's popped up and popped down and popped up again.
Yeah, in February.
When they do show it, that'll be sort of the indicator, I think. But yeah, I mean, I think it's a good date to hit overall. I don't really see. They've been working on it in secret for so long, because I think they said something like 3 years. So
yeah, I think maybe more than that if I remember correctly, but you're probably more accurate than I.
But I mean, a long time. So I don't really see it as it'll be a full-fledged game now that I've seen Saints and Sinners, and that's a full-fledged game. Asgard's Wrath is a full-fledged game.
Yeah, it's getting to be a viable platform to invest in.
It's very much so. Yeah.
Which is great. It's becoming a good spot for some great games, and that's why I'm happy I kind of invested just recently, because it's fun for like little gimmicks, and it's also fun for like some really cool looking titles. Like right when I saw Saints and Sinners, I was like, man, add that to the list. Is that game long, by the way, or?
Yeah, it's well over 10. I saw somebody defeat it in 18. Mine was 14, but it's depending on like how you play it.
Okay.
And if you just want to grind away on like leveling up versus the story.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I was just wondering. I usually don't play for more than 3 hours at a time, because I don't know. Do you get it where your headset starts to like weigh almost on like your nose?
Oh no! Do you have a VR cover?
A VR cover.
VRcover.com. Order a foam insert that replaces that, and it removes the pressure on your nose. It's called VRcover.com. They're $19. And they magically change the way VR feels on your face. And you pull out your
because I've been like adjusting the knob on my head, and like
it goes away completely.
Okay, sweet. All right.
So literally, I don't buy a VR headset now without either getting a generic one from them or the licensed one from them. And every headset I own instantly
it's like an attachment, or do you put it on first?
The foam comes off of the original, and you replace that foam with your new VR cover foam. And it's a thicker foam. It's softer, breathable, washable. They're fucking for $19. I would pay $100 because I would get a pressure on my nose or my brow.
Yeah, that's where I get it most. The brow is where I get it the worst. Okay,
this
so
lifts
there's something.
And you're able to actually tighten the headset crazily enough because it's such a nice cover. It's so puffy, so you can actually make it fit better, and at the same time be more comfortable. It's crazy.
Nice. Yeah, awesome.
Definitely get one.
Yeah, because that's what I was gonna say. I love playing VR, but it's so spotty for me right now, because I'm like, oh, this just must be because like it's a freaking huge thing on your face.
And they don't weigh a small amount.
Okay.
They're a couple pounds. I mean, the headset is a couple pounds, so having something on your face hurts.
Okay. All right. So, yeah, Half-Life Alyx coming relatively soon. Should be in March. And with that, Karak, we get into our patron questions.
I have a question. What the fuck is the light blue canister of Doom behind you? That box of light aqua blue.
This?
What is that?
That is a record player.
Oh, okay. I got you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. It actually pops open and it's a record player. I usually use it while I am editing. Today, I didn't have time to set it up. I wanted to, just get straight to it. But yeah, it's a record player. And then to the left of it, can you see it? Actually, yeah, right there is that's the Nier Automata soundtrack.
Oh, gotcha.
On
Very
record.
Cool. On
vinyl.
Cool.
My girlfriend got it for me. It's really neat. And it's got like extended versions of the tracks. Really beautiful, actually. I love it. As you know, I love that game, so. All right, let's get into the first two from Tropical Ice Cow. Number one is with Watch Dogs Legion, Cyberpunk, and Avengers all initially scheduled for release in the first half of the year, and now all after E3. Do you think they will have a large showing at E3?
Ubisoft or all those companies?
All those games: Watch Dogs Legion, Cyberpunk, and Avengers. They were originally scheduled for the first half. Now he's asking, if we're going to see more large showings at E3. I think especially Ubisoft, you can expect that.
Yeah, that's the default answer. Yes, Legion will be most likely leading, if not Assassin's Creed, Ragnarok, or whatever they're going to call it.
Ubisoft should have a pretty good E3 conference this year from what we're looking at, because there's rumors of a Mario and Rabbids 2. Watch Dogs Legion already looked great as it was. Now it's getting a lot more time for polish. Assassin's Creed coming back is going to be awesome. I loved Odyssey. I'm happy to see something Viking-based. That the game could be like... If it has that mixture that Odyssey had of, like, it's brutal as shit sometimes, but, like, you can just Spartan kick someone a mile away. They have that goofiness there. Oh, man, they'll already have something special. Avengers, I don't know. Avengers is just kind of lingering, man. I don't think... I think a lot of people have already said, like, oh, it's going to sell well, it's Avengers. I don't think it will. I'm going to be honest. I don't have a good feeling about that game.
If they have a good E3, it will. If they don't, it probably won't.
Yeah.
That would be the easiest way for me.
That game, out of everything that's been delayed, looked like it needed it the most. Maybe Cyberpunk as well. But Avengers for sure. But I think Avengers had legit, just, as we like to say, baked in problems.
Did you see Cory Balrog, the developer, the lead for God of War? Did you see what he said about Cyberpunk being delayed?
Oh yeah, that like every game's like runs like crap
he's like,
until
dude,
optimized.
It's something I always try to tell people. It's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like that's legitimately like how it happens in development. It was so cool for him, and he had like 8 posts in that thread on Twitter.
Good. It was good.
Explaining development to people.
It was almost like an intern fucking leaked the information to some journalist, and they just like, they're like, yeah, that makes sense, and it's like, well, if you knew something about game dev, this is what it's like.
Yeah, and Cory is fairly open about everything, both the good and the bad. Maybe not so as much with the bad because he's Sony and he doesn't want to burn his bridges, but he was talking about was just development as a whole, and it was cool for him to sort of just negate that, because I saw some people just going to town, and he was all, guys, it sort of makes us all look dumb too. That's one of the reasons why I watch what I tweet. Not cuss words and stuff, but I mean, like, if you're talking about development, it's like, you better fucking
you're trying
source
to be
your shit. Yeah, you better source your shit, because you're going to have a dev now. These days, devs are much less prone to let something slide. And they'll be like, nah, you fucking have no clue what you're talking about, which is cool.
Number 2 from Tropical Ice Cow, with PS5 probably due around the end of November and Sony not attending E3, when, where, and how do you think Sony will reveal the console and release date?
I think the February showing will probably show it all, right?
Yeah, didn't Sony do it in February last time? They revealed the console in the first place before they even went to E3. I mean, Sony not attending E3, a lot of people used it as like it's a sign it's a dying show. I mean, it's pretty clear with the writing on the wall that the ESA and PlayStation don't have a good
working relationship.
Yeah, they don't have a good relationship whatsoever. I think honestly, if any company was to abandon E3 and be bigger than it, it was probably Nintendo, because like they announced a direct via email and like they just say like, oh, it's happening in 2 days, and like everything explodes. Like, stop everything. Everyone's making videos, predictions. I think I'm surprised that Sony's doing it in a second year, especially because like state of play isn't really well established. But it's good to see that they're trying to do something outside of E3. But what's strange is like the reason I brought this up is because PlayStation said they're attending like hundreds of other events to show off the console and connect with gamers. And I know like Microsoft and Nintendo benefit from that more because it's more of like a community thing, especially from Microsoft, man, like big time. But it's like, it's just clear that Sony's not going to E3 because of something with the ESA.
Yeah, and also, they get to control the talking
timing
points
almost, yeah.
And Microsoft does their own Xbox event as well as their own monthly event, as well as E3. Nintendo does the directs and E3 videos. I think Sony or Nintendo were probably the best to drop out. But total attendance was down by 3,000, and still it's way above what it was in 2012. I think was the bad ones, where it was like 20 or 30,000 down. Overall, I would say they'll probably announce it in February. They'll probably announce the price. They may not, though, because there is a lot of hubbub about who's going to be cheaper. And Sony did get a spot on Microsoft at the last E3 when they both announced. Remember, Microsoft was like, they go first, here's what it is. And Sony's like, well, we're $100 cheaper and you can sell your games, or whatever they said.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Sony and Microsoft, by the way, both have instigated those exact online requirements that Microsoft got nailed for. Sony is just as bad. They both have just sort of saddled back in and done it anyway. But yeah, probably February. Maybe not the price, but surely the date.
I think the price will be one of the last things we hear.
I think so too.
I think they're going to try to hype people up for the console, give it a release date, and then sort of just exit the stage and kind of control the conversation from there. Then again, if they're going to say all that, I think the price would come with it. Now that I think about it, it'd be really weird to go on stage and be like, here's these games, here's the PlayStation 5, here are the specs, here's when it's coming, no price. I don't know. I feel like that's kind of strange. I feel like the only reason they may hold back on the price is because of the potential tariffs, because it's being produced in China, and you might see a price change. So they may hold that back and just give you a release date and then walk on with it. Ultimately, I think what hurt E3 the most, I know this is off base with your question, Tropical Ice Cow, but I just think what hurt E3 the most of anything, I'm going to be honest, and this is no offense to anyone who attended, but I just think making it a consumer-focused show hurt it the most because I think one of E3's biggest things was that it was like because you had things like PAX, you had things everywhere around the world. I can't think of any other conventions off the top of my head right now, but Comic-Con. You had so many different shows to go to that let the companies interact directly with consumers and have them test games and be a part of that process. One? I guess just E3, I don't think it hurts Sony, Microsoft, or Nintendo or any of the companies whatsoever. In fact, it probably helps them. But I think for the ESA, I think that's a reason that this show's kind of going down because you got many people who work in the industry who are like, we're not going to go because now you see big companies pulling out. It's like, why would I bother? You see the info leak that happened with E3 and you're like, once again, why would I go? Why would I give them that information? I just think them turning it into a consumer show kind of just was them trying to spread their wings in a way that they didn't have to be. And I don't say, because I'm not one of those people. I've heard like podcasts and stuff of people like talking about E3 and like, they couldn't stand how there were so many just like normal people there. And I'm like, I don't give a fuck. Like I was there when there were a ton of normal people, if you will. And like, it's not like I was bumping into everyone. It was crowded, but like it wasn't bad. Especially when you're like in our position, we have media badges so we can like hop in front of everybody.
Dude,
I'm just saying from the ESA point of view, like you can just I feel like you can kind of smell that they made maybe not the best decision for their business.
Well, and they also had mistakes afterwards.
Yeah,
so I don't know if we would be, if it would be as much of a mistake. But to speak about what you just said, I rarely believe that there is a overarching message trying to be portrayed. But I will say with E3, I firmly believe that journalists on purpose are trying to portray a message that it no longer matters because it is no longer secretive. It is just like a fucking exclusive country club being open to everybody. And now the members are like, well, it's not as good now. We're going to go somewhere else. Sorry. I'm not saying
it's fun.
All of them do that, but there is a very large contingent where I look at their tweets prior, and which you can, and look at their tweets, and it's like magically, suddenly, it's not like, oh, there's some issues with E3. Let's be honest, it's a big event. There always was issues with E3. And then now it's like, it's outgrown itself. A lot of that is, I think, spread as a, it's no longer the old term was boys only club, not for E3, but that's the old term that's used for something like it's a boys only club. Then you allow everybody, how dare you? I agree with you. I didn't think about it as PAX already having, you're right. PAX does already allow people. Then you have to look at E3 and say, why? There might be a financial thing too that we're not aware
Yeah,
of.
I just feel like it had like a purpose, like a service that it was fulfilling, and like to change that may have hurt them. Is it a bad thing? No, because I know like for me growing up, and I know for many other people, like the dream is like, oh, I want to go to E3 one day. I want to be on that floor, because kind of like what you said, like there was that secret thing, like you'd always hear the rumors of the secret booths where like certain things
Yeah.
were revealed that weren't shown to the public, and I ultimately think like that kind of chaps some people's asses, and that also is why consumers wanted to get there. And I think the ESA thought they were answering the bell by changing that. May have hurt them, but I cut you off. What were you saying?
No, that was pretty much it.
Okay.
I think the leak hurt. I think if the leak hadn't happened, that's a big deal because you're actually affecting the people who are already bitching, right? So imagine a person saying microtransactions suck, and you get a game where they suck. That is the exact opposite of what you want, because you just fed into the exact same. And I do believe that there's some of that. I'm not saying that it was a bad or a good decision, but I think that they also had 3 or 4 mistakes or whatever occurred. I don't even want to get into how all that shit occurred. But you hurt the very people you could have possibly pulled back by having good events, and they didn't. Sorry, I was going to say, for you and I, the cool thing, is that at E3, yes, maybe big journalists won't go, but I firmly believe that it's in Microsoft, Nintendo, EA, Sony, whoever goes, Ubisoft, it's in their hands to actually turn that into a positive by embracing the consumers that are going.
Yep.
And imagine something cool like this. Imagine if I was a big company and you have a line of people and you're like, hey, 100 of you guys, let's go look at a secret title. That kind of stuff could absolutely like change the way people think of E3. Like, oh my God, there was some, and I don't think that's happened yet, but I do feel that there is an untapped market with those consumers being there where you can cause them to be the mouthpiece for you.
Makes sense.
If you handle it correctly.
Next question comes from Natural Calamity. What is a way you think Stadia can recover? Maybe make some deals for new games?
You cut out, bro. You cut out. Start that again. Natural Calamity.
Sorry. Natural Calamity. What is a way you think that Stadia can recover? Maybe make some deals for new games? Join forces with the steadily falling GameStop. Go the Game Pass route for Stadia. I'm just going to say I think it's kind of like not dead and gone, but like it's just ahead of its time. Like I think we'll look back at it in like 5 years maybe and start to see like, oh, they had the good idea, but it's one of those things. It's one of those pieces of technology that we talk about. It's not narrative, like the stats have proven it. They have more problems than just the Stadia itself. The games, their prices, that stuff hurts it. I think the lack of services, the idea of like, why would I play Destiny 2 on my Stadia instead of just at home? Obviously, there is that allure of like, oh, take it to your airport and sync it up with your laptop, and you can play Destiny 2 wherever you want. And you're kind of seeing that idea with PC games with now Alienware announcing some type of like Switch-looking game system that's going to be able to play PC games, but you're seeing technology try to bridge that gap in a number of ways between high-end games and portability, and I just don't think the tech and price points and public, more importantly, is ready for something like that. Give it some time, and I think Stadia will look like a brilliant idea in hindsight, but there have been other mistakes that I think have hurt it, and no one wants to buy in. I totally understand why. With new consoles coming, we just talked about VR taking off. I'd rather pocket that 150 or whatever it is for a Google Stadia Founders Edition and instead focus on VR for that. You're already about a quarter of the way there if you're looking at like the Rift S.
Yeah, I would agree with all that. I think the only thing I would add is that Stadia did announce last week that they had 10 exclusively early on Stadia titles coming this year. We don't know what they are. Even if they were Cyberpunk, and I mean this, even if they were Cyberpunk, today, for instance, 60% of the East Coast was down for the internet, which is why I'm surprised you and I are actually able to talk. Because my Twitch announcement for the podcast didn't go live today because the Twitch servers were just having issues.
Right.
Microsoft has it correct. Hardware backed up by streaming. They just announced Destiny 2, day before yesterday, is available now in the Xbox Insider program to stream. So they quite literally just like neutered one of the reasons for the Stadia. Additionally, $150 versus buying an Xbox original for $190 or $150 if you get it on sale. You start going like, well, wait a minute. Like, why would I buy it? I can still, with Xbox Live streaming now, you can stream just like normal to your Android, just like you could to using Google, but you also have a home console if you want to play it at home. Its price point's fucked. Its delivery's fucked. It should have come with a mini PC. It really should have. It should have, and I think that would have also failed. The internet's not ready, man.
Yeah,
dude, it's not ready. Australia, by the way, an entire continent not ready. Go ask somebody in Australia what the internet speed is.
Yeah,
it's a platypus.
Yeah,
yeah, it's crazy. Well, Camel, right? You talked to him.
Camel Lone for sure. Lone had really bad internet forever.
Skill Up, when I did his podcast, or when he did my podcast, I think he had 2 megabytes upload. So it was like
so bad,
dude. That's snail mail. So yeah, it's not ready.
Swaggy Booty has a question for me. Maybe you've played this game, Karak. He says, Matt, this is why I don't read the questions in advance for this specific reason. Matt, since I've noticed you've been using your VR lately, have you purchased VR Kanojo? Why or why not? And so he posted a screenshot of what this game was in case I had not heard of it. It says, this is Steam version. Looking for a unique VR experience? Will look no further. In VR Kanojo, you can hang out with the lovely girl next door, Sakura Yuhi. You'll practically feel her breath on your cheek and the warmth of her fingers on your arm as you laugh and talk all day. And the release date was last year, April 9th, 2018. I'm sorry, last year. I'm an idiot. I keep thinking it's 2019. 2 years ago. And it's got very positive reviews on Steam. Have you heard of this game?
Yeah. I think I've played it. I think I own it.
Are you serious?
Yeah, because I've done VR Paradise, which is strippers. I've done VR. I've done all. Dude, when you have a VR system, you just start buying shit. Like, if it looks like all interesting, VR Poker Stars, which is free, is probably one of the best games on the VR system, strangely enough. I do believe I played that, but I played a lot of the, what are they termed? Female, there's a term for it, like female entertainer games. They're all just creepy as fuck. There's nothing about it that, it's just like when you look at porn for the first time in VR. It's like your fucking Pyramid Head from, fucking Silent Hill. The cameras are all screwed up, or they're digital looking, which is what she looks like. I just feel that, go to VR Chat. It's free. Don't buy that.
Go to VR Chat.
Well, go to VR Chat.
I have a friend that's got 1,000 hours of VR Chat.
1,000 hours?
Yeah.
Okay, that's a lot. I don't even.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a lot. Dude, VR Chat for D&D is incredible. I've talked to some people. There's been speeches given. The coolest thing I ever saw was a 2-hour history lesson that was given in VR. That was fun, but yeah, nah.
Yeah. In answer to your question, Swaggy Booty, my friend, I have not played that game. I don't plan on it. Because he tricked me one time and made me play Hot to Full Boyfriend, and I did not like that game at all. I did not. I've not like ever just. It's not hate. I just never have straight disliked a game more than Hot to Full Boyfriend. Yeah, I just thought it was so. I'm just gonna say it straight up. Like, dumb shit pisses me off.
Yeah, right.
And that game is just dumb. Like, it's like, oh, birds, dating sim. I'm like, why? Yeah. Fucking why? No offense to anyone who likes it, because I know I played 9 hours of it, all right? That's how much of a chance I gave it. I just think it's very stupid. All right, Natural Calamity has another question. He resubmitted. Sorry, I did not see this. When seeing the Cyberpunk delay and looking past all the corporate jargon, what do you believe the delay is attributed to? Also, do you foresee them releasing any more gameplay for the game? Well, second part of your question we already answered, but yes. What do you think the delay is attributed to?
Optimization.
Yeah.
For sure.
Yeah. Just making sure it runs well. It's a very tall game, so you're allowed to apparently go inside buildings. That's what they're trying to do because it's a city. So I think it's making sure that that city can run on current hardware. And then you got to think they're launching now closer to next gen. They're probably optimizing and making sure things don't go kaputs on that. Because you think like, oh, obviously if it can run on the PS4, it'll run on new systems. But you got to think of like Assassin's Creed Unity, where next gen Assassin's Creed, you thought there'd be no problems, and it ended up being a very problem launch.
Disaster.
Yeah.
Also, I think that they're a company that if this was a different company, I don't know how long the delay would be. It's CD Projekt Red. They're flush with cash from good old games. That's how they get all their money. Well, and Witcher 3 selling like hotcakes. There is no stress there compared to the stress that like is at some other companies. It sucks for them, I'm absolutely sure. I also am now firmly, I don't know, I want to see if you believe this. We discussed this for hours on the podcast last week, and I am now 90% sure they knew this delay earlier than they announced it.
100%. Yeah, I feel like.
And I don't know how much earlier, but it feels like they waited for other people to say shit was being delayed. I don't know what, and just be like, so are we. I don't know.
I kind of see, because I just always think back to like last year's gameplay release, and I was like, that was fun, but like that didn't. We talked about it the week after on the podcast. We were like, it just didn't look as good as.
Yeah. Right.
Like they added a bunch of shit to the game, and it just started to fall apart a little bit.
Yeah. Yep.
Something about it just looked off. It still looks like a good game, of course, but just.
I just mean within the last maybe month prior to the announcement.
I mean, maybe it doesn't date back that far, but yeah, they definitely knew it in advance for sure.
Yeah.
Drunken Boar. Number 1 is, what is a weird reason you stopped playing a game? I have an unhealthy fear of snakes, and Far Cry 3 and 4 were hell for me to get through because of this fear. I couldn't power through Primal.
Fair.
I was actually loving the game. It was the way the snake jumped out that got me every time.
Fair.
Oh, understandable. I'm trying to think. What's a game that spooked me out so much? Do you have one?
For a dumb reason you stopped playing?
A weird reason? I guess you could throw in a dumb reason, but a weird reason?
Or, yeah, weird reason. Sorry.
Man.
I mean... Yeah, Jedi Fallen Order.
That's recent too.
Yeah, and I went back to it finally, but Jedi Fallen Order, the bonfires, whatever the fuck you want to call them, they're in every game. Mm-hmm. And there was one particular part in that game, and the reason why I call it weird is because I still don't firmly believe that the Dark Souls style combat worked as well as people think for Jedi Fallen Order. And I experienced this one moment where I died, and it was a pretty big truck back to the spot. And I remember thinking to myself, like, why is this game I'm not wanting to continue playing where Surge 2 I had no issue? None. And I think it's because I already knew the IP, and I already knew all the enemies I would face. And I know that sounds weird, but it's Star Wars.
Right.
So I know it's going to be a fucking stormtrooper. And I ended up, that would be it. That I knew the weird thing is that I knew the IP so well that the Dark Souls style corpse run shit, or not corpse run, but far back to get to where your save game was. It was weird to me, and I think that wouldn't have happened with other games. I did go back to it.
Let me double check the name of the game. I have an idea of one. Okay, it is called that. So there's this really good game called Phantom Doctrine, right? It's definitely inspired by XCOM, except it's set in the Cold War. What, you don't like it?
It's not very good.
You don't like it? Okay, no, it's fine. I get why you wouldn't.
Think.
Okay, so I liked it because you didn't have to always go guns blazing. Like you could sneak into like places and use disguises and just grab your intel and leave. I played it about 10 hours. I really liked it. I made like a 40-minute Patreon video on why I liked it. Just kind of walking through the game's mechanics, which I want to start doing more. A lot of people really like that. Anyway, so this isn't like an uncommon reason, but the text in that game is so fucking stupidly small, and I couldn't take it anymore. I was like, I can't. I intentionally played even on handheld, and then I started docking it and putting it on the biggest TV I could in my house to see if I could see this game, and I still couldn't fucking read it. And I have 20/20 vision. At that point, I was like, "You're the problem. I'm done with you," and I deleted the game. And that was it. I never went back, despite how much I liked it.
Did you have an issue? The only issue I really had with that game, I made that face only because the enemy could shoot you from anywhere in the level sometimes, and there would be times where I felt I had to basically scroll all corners of the map before doing anything, because if I went anywhere, it didn't matter. It's like the AI can see where you can't see unless you look. And that may sound normal, but for that in particular, that kind of game, I think the levels were too big. or their
I can see what
distance
you
was
mean.
too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, one of the biggest enemies of those types of games were like when to get the level started, you have to take like 2 turns to like
Yes.
walk places and position.
Yes.
Achilles heel big time. Yeah, for sure.
Very
Like,
much so. Yep.
Yeah. So yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, I could see that being a problem in like the long run. But like initially, like yeah, there was one mission I did. It was for the Patron video. I was doing a stealth mission. I like the video was like 40 something minutes, but it was like at least like a good hour and a half of just like recording and you know me just trying to like simply stealth my way into like I think knocking someone out and taking them away in a room that like the game practically forced me to engage with like guns, which I don't like that feeling either. But yeah, like orienting the situation can be fun for some people, but that game like because you have to like move 5 steps, now your AP's out, you got pass turn. I don't know, it can put you in a sticky situation quick. Number 2 from Drunken Boar is, when do you think VR and streaming will be the main ways that people play games?
Oh, I see. Stadia and VR.
Yeah.
What streaming. Oh.
I guess either or. I think you meant either or. If he means combined, I don't know. I don't see that's VR on its own. It's already tough enough. I can't imagine streaming a VR game. If it starts to lag, that would be awful.
Dude, that'd be so nauseating.
Yeah.
You'd get so sick so fast.
I think just on principle, more, I think they wouldn't combine those two just because of that. Because we heard developers of Half-Life Alyx talk about how they didn't do Portal VR because you start to get sent through like portal after portal, and it's just like, whoa, hold on, take the headset off. You know, this is too much. I think streaming is kind of like what we said with Stadia. You know, it's a matter of when the internet is ready. I don't think we're super far off, but it's just a matter of time with that. It doesn't mean that I think physical releases and downloading games will permanently go away. I just think you'll start to see more services pop up, which sucks, by the way. There's just so many now that it's like, it used to be great, and now everyone's doing it. It's not as good. Unless it's Game Pass. Okay.
For VR, I would say I don't think all games are made for VR. But I do think this will be the year where you see a lot of VR. And I don't even mean from Half-Life. I mean from just a ton of companies. We'll see more and more VR.
Yeah. You'd be surprised once you pick up a VR headset, because now it's like, okay, I have the hardware. How many games there already are that are good, and like how many are coming? You're like, what? Oh my gosh. So yeah, I'm excited for the future of VR. There's definitely a lot more coming. I think people
it is
are
a platform, though. I think that people don't realize it is like buying a console. It really is, because some of those games are just for VR, and then some have both, like Fallout or Skyrim, but a lot are just for VR and don't have a pancake version at all.
It's kind of got the same situation as the Switch for those who aren't aware, where like Skyrim is like Karak said, like you can play it on your Switch, you can play it on your PS4 or whatever, but it's really, really fun to play in VR because there are so many things that change the immersion level, especially like what Karak said last week where you mod it. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
It's wild. All right, let's move into our questions from Benjam. What are your top 5 Hall of Fame games from your childhood? For me, in no particular order, so we won't put it in order either. He said they are Guitar Hero 2, Roller Coaster Tycoon 2, RuneScape, James Bond Nightfire, and Pokemon Leaf Green.
Wow, James Bond is a combo breaker. I'll be right back. I'm going to put my dog out.
All right, no problem. For me, Benjam, I'm going to say Sly 2, Thieves of Time, for sure. We're just talking childhood, by the way. These are not favorite games of all time, but I will put KotOR 1 in there. I did not play KotOR 2 for a while. So Sly 2, KotOR 1, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal, for sure. That game was like super significant to me. I think that was the one where you get the fire whip, and I remember just being like stunned that you could just use something like that in a game. Ratchet and Clank was major for me growing up. I don't think any of these will be surprise picks. Guitar Hero 3 for sure. I loved that game, man. Grinded that shit. Like I remember thinking I was a rock star. I was sick at Guitar Hero, and I'd buy like Smash Hits. I'd buy all these different expansions for Guitar Hero. I was obsessed. I was one of those people. So yeah, Guitar Hero. I wouldn't have thought of that if you didn't suggest that. And yeah, RuneScape as well. I don't mean to copy your list too much, Benjam, but seriously, man, like RuneScape at one point as a kid, I only played RuneScape from like 4th grade to 6th grade. It was the only game I played. So that's my list. Karak, just came back. So Karak, just my list was Sly 2, Thieves and I said Thieves in Time, Band of Thieves, Sly 2, Band of Thieves. I guess there's Halo in there too. But anyway, Sly 2, KotOR, Ratchet and Clank Up Your Arsenal. What was it? RuneScape and Guitar Hero 3. Oh, your mic's still muted. Hold on.
Sorry, these are childhood?
Childhood, yeah. Just grown up, those games. Doesn't have to be favorite of all time.
Space Harrier, Phantasy Star. Zillion, those are all Sega games. Space Harrier, Phantasy Star, Zillion. Yeah, those are all Sega games. And then Conan for the Apple IIe, which is fucking ancient as fuck.
Wow.
Let's go with the Genesis. Oh, Star Control 2 for the Sega Genesis. Holy shit, that game was good. Yeah, so, you know what? Those are all one Apple game and the rest are Sega, I believe.
You got one
EA,
more.
Yeah. Oh, do I have one more?
Yeah, you got one more.
KotOR wouldn't have been my childhood. Well, it would have been pretty close. If not KotOR, probably Baldur's Gate 1.
Oh.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate 1. Probably.
Yeah,
I think,
man.
just
Like,
thinking back to time.
This is one of those times where usually I like when the viewers or the listeners ask us like more condensed, like 5, 3. But if they pick 10, oh my gosh, because I would have easily picked like Mega Man X Command Mission, Mega Man X8, Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, like Champions Return to Arms, like those games just bang.
I would have added Gauntlet because I was a huge Gauntlet. That shit was that one of my favorite games of all time.
Yeah, for sure. Second question is there any video game that you have and want to beat, but for some reason you find every excuse not to play it? It depends. Like for me, it was Disgaea 5. Disgaea 5, I procrastinated for years. I had it on PS4, and I was so convinced that it was the system that was delaying me from playing the game that I fucking bought it again to play on my Switch. I played it for about 5 hours and just realized that I don't like games that are that style of combat, if you will. It's a Final Fantasy type that I don't remember what the exact term is. But that almost, like, for those who don't know, it's like the camera's up above, almost like isometric, but then you tilt it down 45 degrees. It's like a diagonal angle. And a lot of people like it for how creative you can get with it. It didn't sync with me, and I thought story was a little silly, which I know it's supposed to be, but it wasn't silly in a grabbing way, like a Borderlands, if you will. Like, it didn't get me in that way. But yeah, for a really long time, that's a game I put off.
I usually buy what I am gonna play.
Yeah, I'm not one of those people that I buy a game and I don't play it, but like there's been a couple times I bought a sale game, you know?
Yeah, I think the one game that like I get into and then bounce off of all the time, but I want to keep playing is Elite Dangerous, whether it be VR or not, because I love this kind of games, but the requirement just to remember 5 controls is actually pretty high, because you have to control like your landing gear, your speed for landing on a spaceport, and sometimes I'm just like, dude, I just want to hit A, and if I'm doing VR, I sometimes want to do something else. So yeah, that Elite I think definitely pops up a lot.
Okay. Vault guy, or Vault 101 guy, he has a 2-part question. We already answered it because originally he asked about Cyberpunk and the delay, and we've kind of talked about that multiple times now. He also asks, have you or Karak played Subnautica? If not, you most definitely should. Amazing game. I'm playing it for the 3rd time. I have not played that.
Gotta break your heart, man. I just don't like that game. I don't know. Because I had early access to it, or when it was in early, because it's been in early access for fucking ever. I think it just got its final. Is it? A survival underwater game. So it's it's like No Man's Sky but underwater, I guess.
All right,
and you're building your base. Yeah, and I played it when it was technically unfeasible. In fact, it actually still Johnny plays it on our podcast all the time, and even he's like, dude, I love it, but it's still not optimized after like 6 years. It still has FPS drops, and he's got a 2080 Ti, and so I would say probably Subnautica being one of those titles that just didn't grab me. And I tried to return to it a while ago, and it's probably one of those games that after 5 hours I would suddenly be like, oh, I get it, and then everything would be great. But
right. All right, moving on to Grade 851 with a batch of questions. Number 1, this past fall had less AAA releases, and at least for me, the first big release won't come till March with Ori kicking things off. Well, I have good news for you, Grade 8. That's in February.
Yeah.
That's the middle of February. February 11th, I believe.
It is. You say, yeah, last week we looked it up.
So that wasn't even a question. That was a statement from Grade 8. Do we respond to this? Do we just move on with our lives and just tell him to fuck himself?
We just say, dude, it's February. Unless he knows something we don't.
Well, anyway, I'm looking for... Oh, I'm sorry. There was... I am the idiot now. I am the idiot now because I saw he separated his questions in the right manner with paragraphs, but he wrote number 1. He wrote his whole thing about the fall games or Ori in March, but then there's enter, and he goes... I've been enjoying being able to go back to some older games or finishing others up. What about for you guys? Has this stretch hurt your workflow being content creators? He was talking about what was coming up that he was looking for, and then he included his question with that. But the way it was written out, I thought it was a separate question. Sorry, Grade 8. We love you.
Yeah, I would say content creator-wise, YouTube has hurt me more than anything. But the gap does hurt if you're not doing reviews, and that's what you're known for. Because I've even noticed now the views are much lower. And I was out of the office for a month or so last year, and so those combined, I would say, not big games though. I could have done some small games, but
yeah,
I don't know if it hurts. In fact, it's probably refreshing. It's just you have to decide what you want to hit, because a lot of times it's easy because people identify it for you. People identify because they're talking about Ori or whatever, so you're focused on it. You're like, they're talking about it, and I'm talking about it. That I'll cover. But when there's a lot not coming out, there's sort of like okay, what do I cover? Sometimes there's too many options.
Sometimes I just shoot out a tweet. Like I remember with Far Cry New Dawn, I asked people like, "Hey, this was when I was just like interested in post-apocalyptic games. I was like, would you guys think this would fit?" And people were like, "Yeah, definitely." And then like as it approached, I was like, "It doesn't look that good." So never mind.
It wasn't.
Yeah. For me, I would say it's tough for me to go back to games, but I take really big advantage of these points in time where like we just have Kakarot and that's it. And like Ori's coming in February, and like that's really it for me in the terms of interest, where I do like to go back to games, or I do like to clean up the backlog. That's why a lot of people complain about their backlog. I probably, if I looked back to the N64, I'm sure, or the SNES even, I'm sure I have like a very large backlog, but I just look at what I care to play, and I don't have a very big backlog. I think the most intimidating one sitting there is Chrono Trigger on my DS. That's the one that I'm looking at that like one day I want to sit down and play. But for me, I try to tie it into my work a little bit if I think it'll work. Like right now, I'm tinkering with playing on the Game Boy because we're 2 hours in, so I'll talk about a little project I've been working on. I've been toying around on the Game Boy, and I'm just like, maybe I should just make like a video about, should you buy a Game Boy in 2020, and maybe combine that with like the analog pocket that's coming out and review that. And so I like to combine my nostalgia trips with projects, because I think, I can always go back and just go put the nostalgia goggles on and just enjoy something. But I also just enjoy playing new shit too. So it's kind of fun to go back and take like a different angle on it, because it makes it more fun for me. So I try to combine them. You guys will know in December I did a 2019 review for Divinity Original Sin 2, and it got like 90K views. Like people just sometimes like to revisit titles and rediscuss things years later. And so I try to combine those two, and it works pretty well. So it hasn't hurt me as much as it used to. It used to be a big problem.
I also use it for study. So like I think I watched every GDC video there was, because you just don't have time sometime when you're covering 10 games. And so it's been a very good time. And reading. I like to do other stuff outside of YouTube, strangely.
Yeah. Number 2.
May sound not like it.
What are some of the best podcast or half watching a show / sport games for you? So far, I've found Slay the Spire and Darkest Dungeon to work well. So like, what's a game that you maybe play when you're just chilling on the couch and you're like half watching something? I can't do that anymore. I used to be able to.
Yeah, I mean,
I've tried, and the way my brain is wired is I want to focus on one thing, right? I can't do, I can do multiple things at once, but like, my girlfriend makes fun of me all the time because when we text, I have typos or I just write words that make no fucking sense. And it's because I'll be playing my game and I'll quickly try to shoot out a text and then put my phone down. And then, like, I'll just mess up. It's because, like, I'm trying to do two things at once. I'm trying to focus on one thing while doing another. And I feel like I'm going to suck at the game or I'm going to be interested in what's happening on the TV. And eventually I'm just like, I'll just watch TV because I always play games.
And I focus on voice acted games a lot. So like even my MMOs are voice acted, which means I want to listen. So like I was going to say DC Universe Online because I fucking adore that game and it doesn't require a shit ton of whatever. But I actually enjoy the voice acting. So I want to listen to it.
Yeah.
Maybe a KotOR. No, because I want to listen to the voice. Maybe, oh, yeah.
Slay the Spire is one that makes sense. Like, I'll sit in a party with my friends and just play it and, like, not focus on... I'll just play the game, kind of, and just, like, focus on the conversation. But that's about it. And that's still not, like, TV or something.
And I could play board game video games for sure. If there were, like... And there are a couple that I have that I would play. It just all depends.
All right, number 3 from Great Ape is, what would you guys like to see in the next Far Cry game, or return to the Far Cry 2 style gameplay, Primal 2? I'd at the very least like less random things happening when you're talking to an NPC or in the middle of a mission. I think the difficulty in general could be increased, and less copy and pasting of mission types in different zones could help. Do you think that the recent editorial changes at Ubisoft will help the franchise?
The hell you know versus the hell you don't know. So I have no clue if that'll fix it.
Ooh, deep.
Though you didn't like Primal, I would like to see a return to Primal very much. I would like to see them branch out in those kind of oddities versus just more guns. You know, I by the way, Far Cry 5's story was actually very cool. And some of the weird shit going on there, I actually thought that was great. But I would agree with him and all the other stuff. Like, random spawns in 5 are ridiculous. Like, they had a fishing ability in that game, and you could barely fish because you got attacked by fucking every animal. 2 people in a plane. The bad guys knew where you were all the time. I don't know what I would like to see them go to. There's dynamic and there's
just being harassed, and that's one thing I just want them to tone down, because it's
or
like,
a mod. Is there a mod available? We were talking about this before.
I don't play Ubisoft games on PC because I usually don't hear great things about their ports, but yeah, I personally hope that they, design-wise, like, just the interaction is great, seeing the world alive. It's just a little too much. Like, they should just do what, like, even Assassin's Creed, actually, now that I think about it, I was going to praise it, but, like, they had the mercenary system, and that could be such a fucking pain in the ass sometimes.
Or the pigs, or chicken. Was it chickens or pigs in that game? I think it was chickens. Wasn't it chickens in Odyssey that would attack you all, and people were dying from I think that's the game it was.
Oh, might be. I don't know, actually. I've never heard that. That sounds kind of funny, though. But I just, man, the constant, like... You know, someone's got to be doing something to you. It's like, you know, it's developers not realizing, like, sometimes we just like to breathe and just hang in a world. And
also,
I'd like to see Far Cry go to VR. That would be cool. If it hasn't already.
It hasn't. Yeah, that would be cool. I was going to say, I agree with everything you say, and I think that also they make pretty beautiful worlds, regardless of if I like the game or not. And they fill them too busily. So if you were able to just crank down the spawn, whatever you want to call it, and the aggressiveness, I think those games would be fucking awesome, because Far Cry 5, even New Dawn, Primal, 4, 3, their landscapes were fucking amazing. When you had a moment to explore in those games, the fucking spots look awesome. It's just you never got a chance to look at a rock because you were getting shot in the face.
100%.
Or attacked by a fucking weasel, or, you know, there was always something.
All right, next question comes from Big Orc Boss. We're nearing the end here. We only got like 3 more questions. What are the absolute best and worst licensed book, movie, television, etc. games you have ever played, and why? For me, the best example of a licensed game that I have played would be Total Warhammer 2, and the worst I've played is Dragon Ball Z Sagas. That game is really bad. Do you have a particular best and worst licensed game you've played?
Probably Vermintide for Warhammer.
You think that's like a best?
I really did. Yeah. I really think they did a good job giving you the different character classes, and just, I love Warhammer. worst. I mean, Jesus, IPs are known to be terrible when it comes to games. There's thousands of choices for how bad.
A licensed game though. Oh man.
But like Star Wars, there's a ton of shit. Star Wars games. There's a ton of shit. Oh, dude, DC. I played Superman on the N64. Considered one of the worst games ever made.
Yeah, that's a bad one.
So I'd say Superman.
That's a bad one. Yeah, for me, best licensed game. Best licensed game, Toy Story 3.
That game is fucking awesome.
That is a fucking fun game. Worst, man, there's got to be something there.
Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles by Platinum.
Thank you. Yes, thank you.
Dude, shit.
Yep, thank you. All right, that's my answer right there. Karak knows me better than I know myself.
Unfortunately. Well, yeah.
All right, let's keep going and wrap this sucker up. Johnny EC says, since we're talking about Saints Row earlier this week, which was between him and I on my other thread in Discord, what's a franchise that's been on a hiatus that you'd love to see return, and with what improvements? I think Mass Effect would be an obvious one. I'd like to see that return with, like, you know, a more grounded, focused approach, not being so big, but like hub to hub, kind of what makes Mass Effect great. I know a lot of people nowadays, I've seen the conversation shift and say, like, Andromeda's actually not that bad, but I just think it's still pretty bad, I'll be honest. So I would like to see that series come back and keep the gameplay. Gameplay is great, but maybe hand the series off to a different set of devs or ones who want to tell competent, impactful stories.
I mean, he actually picked a good one with Saints Row, because I was always a Saints Row fan.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's what we were talking about, because he said he beat 2 again. And yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I mean, I don't know if is Mass Effect or Saints Row technically on hiatus, though? Like, how long would we consider a pause be?
A couple of years, I guess.
A couple of years.
I guess knowing, though, because Mass Effect, I'd be like, oh, they're making one, but they did say, like, after Andromeda, it's quote, oh, nice.
Yeah,
so,
true.
You know, I guess you could say, like, Dishonored, but Dishonored was great. If that came back as is, I wouldn't be too upset. But there's just series that lie dormant. Empire.
Medal of Honor.
That's coming back in VR. Did you know that?
Oh, I did. Yeah, I don't know how I fucking forgot.
I was going to say, if you didn't know, I was about to blow your mind, because that game looks fucking awesome.
But the reason why I actually mentioned Medal of Honor is there's the other war game by EA where you were 4 people in a squad. There was 2 of them, and they had destructible. It was like Battlefield, but it was right before Battlefield.
Army of 2?
No, but that one I honestly would like to see return. I liked Army of 2.
I liked the first one. That's the only one I played.
The second one was not as good, but yeah, those games were good. It was like not army men. That's not right, but it was 4 dudes, each with a goofy personality, and it was a war game like Battlefield.
Is it like Mercenaries? No.
No. Okay, there you go. It's not going to happen. Forget what I said. Mercenaries, for sure. Oh. I am a freakish Mercenaries 1 fan, somewhat 2. Won't happen, but... Or it may, I don't know. Where's the IP on that fucker? Do we know? I know you're doing stuff for it, but is there...
Yeah, as far as I'm aware... Yeah, I can talk about it. As far as I'm aware, currently Mercenaries is owned by EA.
Mercenaries. I would love to see... Mercenaries 1 on the original Xbox, the original, was fucking amazing. I would love to see
the first one was great, because it was just like GTA in South Korea or whatever. Or North Korea, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
It's just
the second one tried to get a little too... I don't know what the term... Gritty or whatever.
Yeah. All right. Last set of questions comes from Mike Fury. We'll do this in a rapid-fire fashion because we're passing the 2.5-hour mark. Despite the show, this was a really good episode. It's one of my favorites.
I didn't realize this. Oh, damn. It is late. Jesus Christ.
It's late as shit. Number 1, do you guys think that Vampire Bloodlines 2 will be delayed?
Yes.
Yeah. 100%. All right. Did I say number 2 for first, or did I mean number 1? I don't know. This is what happens when we record.
No, you said Vampire. Oh, yeah, I don't know.
I don't know if I started off saying number 2 because I was looking at Bloodlines 2. Well, whatever. Someone will let me know. Number 2, the real number 2, favorite piece of armor in a game. fuck, damn, that's not an easy one. I can just throw out there.
In Mass Effect, there's a
I
helmet
got one.
with a hologram that goes over your right eye, and it actually has scrolling text. And I always thought that was just a
That's
cool
awesome.
graphical effect.
All
What
right.
was yours?
It's not like favorite of all time, but it's definitely one of my favorites. It's when you play Kingdoms of Amalur. If you owned Mass Effect, you could, or in Dragon Age, you could get N7 and Dragon Age armor. Or I'm sorry, no, it was Mass Effect. You could get Dragon Age armor, and you'd have the Dragon Age blood dragon across your chest. And fuck, I thought that thing looked so cool.
Yeah, that was very cool. Very cool armor.
Number 3 is favorite upgrade in a game. Favorite, I guess, ability, power, skill that you could accomplish in a game. Man.
Dragon Age Inquisition, of all things, has a shadow stab where you're fighting, you hit it, and your character does like the shadow leap, stabs out, and then you can reverse it and go right back after a parry. And for some reason, I did it once in the game, and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. And I really dig that. Also, anything in Mass Effect, the one in Mass Effect where you pick an enemy up and you just let them float into the sky is fucking, and watching them wheel around in the sky is such a powerful feeling. Both of those would be my power upgrades that I like.
One that I really like is, for those who play Smite, there's this god called Ra. He's been there since like the very beginning, and he has this ultimate where you press triangle or whatever it is, you activate ultimate on PC. I want to say it's like Q or something. And it's just this long ray. And when you do it, he like puts his arms out and he closes his hands real fast and like shoots a large, like I said, sun ray out of his mouth. And like the sound design for it, I think Smite has really underrated sound design because it sounds so good. And it's just like a shotgun blast that goes a million miles. And it's really hard to land, but if you do, it destroys your opponents. And when you're like in a tight match and you see like players trying to run for their life and you're like, no, you don't. And like you just anticipate where they're going, you press triangle and you just snipe them for like 800 damage. Awesome feeling for sure. I mean, that's one of the kind of the things about the game in general, but Ra in particular, he's not the best god in the game, but oh my God, when you land that ability, it feels fucking awesome.
Honorable mention has to be the shout in Skyrim. I actually do.
Oh,
like
yeah. Yeah.
Dude,
yeah.
It's saved my bacon because I forget to use the shouts all the time. And I'll be in VR and I'll be, kicking somebody's ass or whatever. And I told you I changed my shout to saying Maddie does not have VR. I got to switch that too.
Are you serious?
The voice.
Wait, you actually did?
Yeah, I switched it to Maddie does not have VR. And it's like,
oh my God.
I got to change that. But the scream is, if you're in the middle of a battle and there's guys circling you in Skyrim and you do that, and watching everything in the game world shatter and explode and then fly around is fucking really cool.
That's funny. I can imagine what your wife's thinking when you're just screaming that in your bedroom or whatever.
I don't even know if she listens to me anymore.
Favorite new IP of the 2010s. We kind of went over this already. Mine was Danganronpa.
Favorite IP of the 2010s?
New IP, like a new series that came out.
Mass Effect. In 2010s. I mean,
I thought Mass Effect started in 07 or 08.
Oh fuck, dude! Did it?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, because it was
Mass
a
Effect
part
2
of the
was
Xbox
10.
360's 3.3, the BioWare, Bungie, and Bizarre. 2010 new IP. Damn, I don't know. New IP. Well, I mean, there's only one game.
They're
but
established
Oxenfree.
series now. Oxenfree. Oh, okay. Oh, that's a good pick. I like that. That game's awesome.
Yeah.
Are you excited for the one that they're making? The hell drinking game one.
It's out.
It's out. Oh,
I reviewed it.
You don't like it?
It was, dude. Its writing was horrendous compared to.
Oh, that sucks to hear.
Yep.
Sucks to hear. Number 5, what game do you guys think will be the Greedfall of 2020? Will fly under the radar, but is really good. I mean, we got to get a list of games for that. But I think early contender is probably Ori. I feel like there's not enough chatter for like what looks like a fucking gorgeous game.
I would, yeah. So one that's not talked about a lot. I'm just looking at the lists here.
Like the Greedfall, like it's just like a handful of people. I just feel like there's industry discussion, but I feel like Ori's been in the making for a while too, so like it kind of makes sense why no one's really talking about it. It's like, all right, just come out already. But when you think of like Xbox exclusives, you're sort of already in. Granted, it's coming to PC too, but you're kind of already fighting an uphill battle at this point in time. And then to get that wide mainstream attention on a Metroidvania title is really tough too. So
I'll say Wasteland 3.
Yeah.
Because it has the ability that it's possible that could end up turning out to be one of those games that like people sort of believe it's just an old Fallout style title and they don't really look at it. But the last couple trailers I saw really intrigued me.
Right. Makes sense. Last question of the day before we wrap up this show. The weirdest things you guys have ever eaten. Fuck, we already answered that at the beginning of the show. We were talking about the toothpick and the packet and everything. Yeah, we've ate some serious shit before.
And I don't experiment with food anyway. Do you?
Well, define what you mean by experiment with food. Like, are we talking like bull testicles or whatever?
Yeah, or anything. But even I just don't even experiment. Like, I don't like sushi. I don't. Well, that's seafood. I hate seafood. But like, I don't really experiment much. I'm not. If I go to a new restaurant, if I go to a Chinese restaurant, usually I'll get the typical stuff like kung pao chicken. Or I'll literally get a burger and everybody.
I was gonna say, you're the guy who gets like chicken fingers at a fucking diner where there's like so many options.
It's been in the oven for like 6 months and shit because nobody orders them there. But yeah, I don't experiment with grub much.
No, I definitely love to test out new food. Then it compared to what you're saying, for sure. Like I find that exciting. But I definitely have my limits. You know, there's certain things like I'm a visual eater, so sometimes I like a garbage plate, but there are times that shit just does not work and it's like way too much. We had we went to this, me and my girlfriend went to this place where they served like pita stuff, and they'd like coat the inside with like hummus, and then they like, I mean, dude, this pita bread's like this tiny, like it's a little whatever, and they painted, that's the best term to describe it, they paint the inside with hummus. They put this like sesame seed sauce. They put like tons of chicken shawarma in there. They put cabbage. They just put like lettuce. It was just a fuck ton of food. And that's where I get turned off. I'm like, all right, like I get, some of the American mentality, if you will, is like eat big, but like this is fucking insane. Like I don't need this much for a pita sandwich.
And you just described everything I hate other than cabbage. Like all the other stuff I would never eat, and hummus is fucking revolting to me. So like, so you can eat hummus? You don't mind hummus?
I love hummus. Yeah, I love hummus.
No shit, really?
Yeah.
Man, yeah, dude, I'm a mayo guy. Like if there's anything, it's just mayo. Good. I don't really mess with any of that crazy stuff.
I would in that case, I would kill to see you try like my avocado oil mayo, because it's like a healthier version of mayo, if you will. I just love to see you try it and be like, what the fuck is this?
Horseradish. I do like hot sauces. As long as they're not too hot. I'm not a fan of burning myself.
Real quick, real important question. Do you like liverwurst?
Okay. I didn't think, yes. My grandma used to make sandwiches of it, and I didn't realize what it was. And then you've grandfathered into gross. Eating it. Yeah. It is, and but you're past that point, right? You've eaten it, and sandwich. Then, and your parents tell you what it is, and you're all, But I also love Spam, and Spam is literally face meat. I mean, it's pretty nasty. Really? Spam is created. Yeah, they get a skeleton of an animal that's got remaining meat, and they use a pressure washer to remove the remaining meat. Oh. They pack it together, but fried Spam and eggs in the morning, breakfast, like instead of bacon, or on a sandwich is so good. But a grandfathered in. If you told me today would be the first day I ate Spam, I would probably look it up and be all, it is not the first day I'll eat Spam, because I will not eat that. But yeah, liverwurst. It's funny you mentioned that, man. It even caused me to like remember the taste, because I haven't had it in. Isn't that a grandmother thing? Because that was for me. My grandparents ate it.
I think so, because I never tried it. I used to make cold cut sandwiches all the time. Like I'd always have like turkey and cheese or ham and cheese, and I was like, I'm getting bored of it. My mom one day came out with like a liverwurst sandwich with a little mayo, pickle relish, and I'm just like, what the hell is that? And she just told me it's liverwurst, and I'm like, I just had a fuck it moment. I'm like, yeah, the name doesn't sound great, but I'm just gonna try it because I want a new sandwich. And like, when I put it on, when I saw her sandwich though, I was like, that does look good. Like, you know, like you said, it's like a grandfathered in thing. Like, it's a taste I know as a kid. I'd be like, ugh, gross.
Yeah. I admittedly, I would probably have a sandwich with that on it. Definitely.
All right. Ladies and gentlemen, if you listened this deep, a sincere thank you. This is our longest episode in a while, but it was a great one. We're at 2 hours and 44 minutes as we wrap this one up. So, like I said, you know, if you guys got this deep, we really do appreciate that.
Yeah, very much so.
Certainly, we kept you busy during something, whether it be work or just playing a game. Maybe you're like Great Ape said, just playing Slay the Spire or Darkest Dungeon, something along those lines. We're glad to be your co-pilot, if you will. But Karak, any closing words, or shall I wrap it up?
Hashtag strange meats.
Yeah,
you got
yeah.
this one? Hashtag strange meats. I want to see who gets to this point. I hope nobody cheats and just goes to the end. But
yeah,
we'll see.
If we get a lot, we'll know.
Yeah, right.
Because no one's gonna be like 2 hours and 45 minutes. Nah, I'm good.
Yeah, I'll just get the Twitter post at the end.
Yeah, we appreciate you guys so much, and we will talk to you all next week of episode 238. I believe that's the episode number. If not, I promise you I'll have it right next time. Do take care of yourself, and we'll talk soon.
Peace out.